It begins in 1861. I have just inherited the throne of the Netherlands. This video is purely for entertainment and does not infringe on copyrights or laws. The rights to the novel and image belong to the original author. We do not claim ownership. Don't like waiting and want to listen to this fanfic in full now? Subscribe to our Patreon, where you'll find the best fanfics. Chapter 726, My Ministry of Foreign Affairs. 1879. In the southwest of South America, Valdivia, a port city occupied by the northern Chilean regime. This city, which has suffered many hardships, now looks particularly depressed. The people in the city have all moved away long ago, and only the northern Chilean army that has just occupied it is left in the city. After a battle, although northern Chile defeated the 50,000 troops of the Great Joe, the casualties were also heavy. In the past 5 months, the northern Chilean army has not directly launched an attack on the remaining territory of the defeated southern Chile. As the most trusted minister of the northern Chilean army by President Artur Lozon, Messi prepared the city wall according to the order and waited for the supply reinforcements dispatched from Santiago. However, the reinforcements from Santiago have not arrived yet, and Argentina has sent 30,000 troops to Santa Carlo, which made him even more afraid to move. Later, the five-nation coalition led by the Netherlands, Colombia, Peru, Ecuador, and Bolivia, arrived. Messi finally understood why he was asked to suspend the attack on southern Chile, rest in place, and wait for follow-up orders. When he first received the order, he was full of questions. Messi and the Dutch coach Schreck were very puzzled at first, but the arrival of the five-nation coalition solved the mystery. However, he later received an order to stop the attack. Now a month has passed. Until today, he finally welcomed a person, to be more precise, an important military figure from the Netherlands, the Secretary General of the Five-Nation Coalition Castillo, who actually came to Valdivia port. General Castillo, I finally waited for you to come. Messi couldn't help asking, General, should we launch an attack on southern Chile now? General Messi may not know that 3 days ago, in order to support southern Chile, Britain frequently met with ambassadors from various countries in London, asking them to continue to support the legal status of southern Chile. At that time, many countries agreed to it in order to give face to Britain. Castillo said, Germany's attitude is ambiguous. Portugal responded to Britain's call and did not recognize your northern Chilean government as the representative of the Chilean nation. Although I didn't see it with my own eyes, it has already spread in the Netherlands. In addition to Portugal, Belgium, Austria-Hungary, the Ottoman Empire, Bulgaria, Montenegro, and Romania all follow Britain in not recognizing the legitimacy of your government. And it seems that you don't have the support of both the north and south of France. Because of this, in the past few months, His Majesty and the government have been working a lot for your legitimacy. Messi was stunned after listening. He even suspected that he had heard wrongly. As the minister of the army, he naturally understood the legitimacy of northern Chile. When the coup just happened, Colombia, Venezuela, Peru, Ecuador, and Bolivia followed the Netherlands in recognizing the government of northern Chile to replace the government of southern Chile. This excited him inexplicably. Brazil and Argentina were the only countries in South America that did not recognize or deny it. Paraguay and Uruguay also played an ambiguous game to wait for the price. But he did not expect such a fierce scene in Europe. So has the Dutch government been dealt with now? He asked hesitantly. After asking, he had some self-contradictory thoughts. He thought the others were possible, but if Britain accepted it, the government of southern Chile would have surrendered long ago, and there would be no need for him to be here, and even Castillo and the five-nation coalition would not have to come here. Castillo also saw Messi's embarrassment, and immediately laughed. It is difficult to move the stinky and hard stone of Britain, but our Dutch government has already started to operate the alliance system. He looked at Messi and said, I believe it will be effective soon. Messi's heart moved. In other words, when there is an effect over there, we will start to attack here. Castillo said, yes, this is confirmed by our new Dutch Prime Minister Sio van Linden and your president. Messi smiled bitterly when he heard it. It seems that the Mascherano government in the south can survive longer. Castillo said calmly, the British troops stationed in southern Chile are actually more annoying, aren't they? Messi's face changed slightly. He glanced at the other party, somewhat confused as to whether there was a hidden meaning in his words. But who cares? This is something that the diplomats and the president in Santiago should worry about. On March 1, 1879, The Secretary General of the 5 South American Allied Forces, Castillo, traveled south from Santiago to Valdivia, which immediately alerted the entire southern Chile. The 7 British warships stationed in Puerto Montt immediately set sail away from the port and headed north. At the same time, the British government announced in London that it had supplied more than 20,000 guns and sufficient ammunition to the southern Chilean army. However, the Clayton government expressed the hope that the Dutch government would prevent another war between northern and southern Chile. Britain was willing to negotiate with the Netherlands and Chile's north and south to reach a peace agreement. On March 9, 1879, at the Dutch Ministry of Foreign Affairs headquarters in Melbourne, Joseph Beit, the foreign minister of the new Dutch cabinet government, was very tough. "We don't think that the British negotiations are sincere, because we are very patient every time to negotiate with the British, but every time we spend enough energy, the British always directly push the whole chessboard apart at the last minute, trying to start over, intending to use this to control the Dutch idea." This kind of negotiation has happened many times during the Liberal Party government. We were the opposition party at that time, so although we were anxious, we couldn't participate. Now we have formed a coalition government, so I represent the new Dutch cabinet government will make a foreign policy different from the Liberal Party period. Therefore, the British negotiation calls for encouragement of peace-loving people, but we will not turn a blind eye to the British tricks. Joseph Beit finally said, "We, the Netherlands and the North Chilean government, will negotiate with the British and South Chilean governments, but the time is determined by us." Joseph Beit is worthy of being the Speaker of the House of Representatives of the Belgian Parliament. While his speech is domineering, it is also reasonable. Because of this, the Dutch Ministry of Foreign Affairs, which he is in charge of, makes everyone start to feel uneasy. Especially Britain and Germany. Of course, even grand allies such as Denmark, Sweden, and the United States have begun to speculate about who will be the head of the Dutch foreign policy in the next 4 years. Kingdom of the Netherlands, Australia, South Australia Province, the headquarters of the current opposition Liberal Party. Former Prime Ministers Thorbecke and Gerrit de Vries sat opposite each other. Thorbecke said, "Jules Stanidan's diplomatic declaration is really wonderful." Gerrit de Vries said, a little unhappy, "We can only see whether its so-called diplomacy that is different from ours is really that effective." Thorbecke shook his head. "It is normal for the Liberal Party to step down. Don't take it to heart. Jan van Lopik will take back power in the future. After all, if we continue to occupy the position of Prime Minister, the Christian Party and the Socialist Party will not be anxious, but your Majesty will be anxious, right?" Chapter 727 Berlin Decision. German Empire, Berlin. If the Netherlands really grows stronger in South America, then the German Empire will have a hard time developing in South America in the future. On the contrary, if the German Empire stops the Netherlands, the German Empire will become one of the winners. No, if Germany really gets involved, we will lose our ambiguous relationship with the Netherlands. With the Netherlands' second largest navy in the world, Britain is so afraid to win over Germany. If the Netherlands suddenly succumbs to Britain, then Germany will lose the ability to absorb Britain's strategic pressure, and we will become Britain's biggest enemy. The loss will outweigh the gain. However, Britain has proposed to support our interests in Uruguay. Obviously, London knows that we are trying to expand our interests in South America. If we don't take advantage of this opportunity now, Britain will have fewer opportunities to talk so well in the future. Crown Prince Frederick looked at Prime Minister Bismarck and said sincerely, "Your Excellency, I still think that it is good for the German Empire to have more contact with Britain. After all, our main strategic interests are in Europe, and so is Britain." On the contrary, after the Dutch capital moved from Amsterdam to Melbourne, Australia in the Far East, their strategic interests seem to be different from ours. The situation in Europe is the most critical to us, but it is not the case in the Netherlands. It is secondary. He raised his head and firmly believed, "I still stick to my opinion. It is time for the German Empire to cooperate with Britain." William I heard this, but did not express his opinion. The old Moltke next to him was the same. "Your Highness the Crown Prince has a good idea. The Netherlands' target is not in Europe, but there is one thing that your Highness seems to have forgotten, that is, our strategy is different from Holland, and sometimes it is just the opposite. This is the main reason why I am willing to support standing together with the Netherlands." Bismarck saw several people looking at him and said, "Don't forget that the German Empire's target is the European continent. If the Netherlands' target is here, how will the interests be divided? I wonder if your Highness has thought about it. Also, if we stand with Britain, When we have disputes with Britain over European interests in the future, how should we resolve them? Will Britain use the same method against us Germans as it did against Napoleon decades ago? So, we need to plan ahead. The Netherlands is in the Far East and looking at Europe. Although we Germans actually have ambitions for South America, this ambition does not hinder the ambitions of the Netherlands. Similarly, the Netherlands will not become an obstacle to us. Bismarck said this, and said to the little Crown Prince William, the future German Emperor William II in World War I, who was listening attentively next to him, what the teacher told the Crown Prince is that the enemy of my enemy is my friend. This sentence is equally applicable in the East and the West. William the Crown Prince nodded and said, according to the teacher, can we continue to befriend the Netherlands and make the Netherlands our foreign aid outside Europe? On the contrary, we can also become supporters of the Netherlands in some of its territories in Europe. In this way, any fight between the Netherlands and Britain in the Asia-Pacific region will benefit Germany. Bismarck nodded, showing a teachable smile. Yes, France was helpless against Britain's powerful world's strongest navy in the past, and we in Germany will be helpless for decades to come. If the rise of the Netherlands was in Europe, we would still be a little afraid, but now it is in the Far East. What else do we have to worry about? On the contrary, Britain should be unable to sleep. The Netherlands consumes Britain's energy and cannot take care of our threats. Britain also wastes Dutch resources and curbs the momentum of the Netherlands' rise. It is the best state for us. Their balance in South America is fragile. We in Germany have become the biggest beneficiaries when France is weak. If we don't take it now, when will we take it? Chief of the General Staff Old Moltke asked after hearing this. Now the new coalition government of the Netherlands has been established. The Christian Party has always been conservative, and the Socialist Party participated in the ruling of the Netherlands for the first time. Jules Darnadin became the youngest prime minister of a country in Europe. Although Belgium is a small country, he was able to suppress Leopold I, the Belgian strongman, and anger him to death. It can be said that he made a big splash. After that, Leopold I was also sidelined, which can be said to have shocked the entire European political arena. So we have to guard against the other party's tendency to take unconventional actions. Old Moltke is worthy of being the most stable one among the three swordsmen of the German Empire. His words relaxed the slightly stiff atmosphere between Bismarck and Crown Prince Frederick. William I showed his appreciation. Well, the current fight between the Netherlands and Britain in South America is in line with our previous plan to ally with Paraguay and share Uruguay. William I said, now Paraguay has shifted its attention to us from its old ally France, which means that it has succeeded halfway. The next step is to increase efforts and encourage the other party to fully reveal its ambitions. Argentina and the Netherlands have become enemies, so we naturally won't allow Britain to monopolize the cake that the Netherlands has lost. My Prime Minister, we should send someone to communicate more with President Mitre. The time has come. I think you should summon the ambassador of the Argentine embassy in Berlin tomorrow. Bismarck nodded and said, yes. William I smiled and nodded at him, and continued, as for Britain and the Netherlands, I think we should continue to follow their trajectory in South America, bet on both sides, and make friends with Chile in the north and south respectively, but we will not make a choice in terms of legitimacy. Hearing this, several people naturally would not object. However, at this time, Crown Prince William asked, Grandfather, will the Netherlands be dissatisfied with the German-Dutch friendship and doubt our future cooperation? After he finished speaking, everyone present laughed, including Bismarck and Crown Prince Frederick, who were always very serious. He looked at several people in confusion. Old Moltke said at this time, Your Highness, don't you know that there are no eternal allies in the world, only eternal interests? William I said to him kindly, My child, although the Netherlands may be dissatisfied, it will still greedily grasp the immediate interests in its hands. Not only the Netherlands, but also the United Kingdom and us. Upon hearing this, William suddenly woke up. On March 13, 1879, German Prime Minister Bismarck summoned Argentine ambassador to Berlin Tula. Subsequently, the German Foreign Ministry announced that the German Empire would deepen its economic ties with Argentina in the future and support Argentina's huge influence in South America. Argentine President Mitre praised the German Empire's approach and expressed the hope that the two countries would cooperate in South America and the Atlantic region in the future. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelis. There you'll find the original version of this story, and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 728 Foreign Ministers Summit. While Bismarck and others were discussing the Netherlands in Berlin, the Netherlands they were talking about was taking frequent actions. On March 10, 1879, Dutch Foreign Minister Joseph Beit personally invited the foreign ministers of 6 South American countries, namely Colombia, Venezuela, Ecuador, Bolivia, Peru and Chile, to visit Melbourne, Australia. At the meeting, Joseph Beit told the top diplomats of these Dutch allies from South America, "Our message from the Netherlands, our Kingdom of the Netherlands has some lasting economic and security commitments to South America. These two commitments are not measured in days and months, let alone years, but in decades and generations." Joseph Beit reiterated at the Dutch plus South American Allies meeting held in Melbourne on Friday that the Netherlands will continue to increase its direct economic support in South America, and at the same time, the Netherlands will not give up helping the Netherlands' allies in South America in the event of a security crisis. He said that the Netherlands will increase the flow of capital, goods and services in South America, and is committed to long-term participation in South American affairs to eliminate the concerns of the Dutch allies about the Netherlands' commitments. Afterwards, he defended the strategy of the Netherlands as an Indo-Pacific power formulated by William IV after presiding over the meeting of the Netherlands plus South American allies. He said that the Netherlands is a proud Pacific power and Indian Ocean power. The prosperity of America, Asia and Africa is due to the presence of the Netherlands. South America, which has developed the fastest in the past few decades, is a long-standing security network. He emphasized to these allies from South America that the Netherlands will stay here. Our message is clear. The Netherlands will not abandon our allies who believe in us. This is true for Venezuela, Colombia, Ecuador, Peru, Bolivia, and I would like to say to the foreign minister and the journalists from various countries stationed in Mexico that this is also true for our ally Arthur Lozon's government in Chile. Joseph Beit emphasized that developing and maintaining the Netherlands' economic partnership and security relations in South America is the top priority of the Christian and Socialist coalition government. He also pointed out that Dutch private enterprises and capital invest up to 200 million Dutch guilders, £4 million, in these 6 countries every year. He said, Dutch capital is a strong partner for the economies and enterprises in this region, because the Netherlands is and continues to be the engine of global economic growth, and is also the most developed country in the world, with world-leading technology. Our Dutch cabinet government is strengthening this point. Before Joseph Beit convened the foreign ministers' meeting of the Netherlands' allies in South America, officials from the Dutch Prime Minister's office said that the Dutch allies in South America are worried that the Netherlands is gradually putting the development of South America off the Dutch diplomatic agenda, and hope that the Netherlands will strengthen its security and economic presence in the region. The Dutch foreign minister and some South American foreign ministers are negotiating on the economic framework of the Netherlands plus South American allies. This is the new economic circle concept proposed by William IV as a core supplement to the Pacific Rim Economic Circle. At the same time, another purpose of this plan is to strengthen the Netherlands' presence in the South American Economic and Military Alliance and establish a core leading position in the alliance. With Argentina's ambiguity with Britain, Argentina, which originally had the greatest economic and military support for the Netherlands, has been pulled into the cold palace by the Netherlands, and other allies may benefit from it and replace Argentina's share. So when Joseph Beit's invitation letter came out, all countries began to visit enthusiastically. This is different from the previous situation when Argentina's presence made other countries feel cold. After Joseph Beit held this foreign ministers' meeting, a senior official of the Dutch Ministry of Foreign Affairs said that Joseph Beit wanted to tell such allies that there is no better partner than the Netherlands. The Dutch diplomat pointed out that William IV is about to receive the visiting American President Stephen Douglas, the actual ruler of North America other than the British, and the relationship between the two countries will surely be strengthened. He also said that Dutch Prime Minister Theo van Linden will visit Mexico to strengthen the relationship between the Netherlands and Mexico. This demonstrates the efforts made by His Majesty the King, the Prime Minister, and the Foreign Minister to strengthen the alliance with this region of America and to increase investment in key institutions in this region. William IV and Theo van Linden respectively met with these foreign ministers from South America. This was a high-level reception. According to international practice, a country's foreign minister or ministerial level official can only be received by a foreigner of the same level, that is, by the Prime Minister or President of the next higher level. This time, William IV's reception made these people flattered. Many of them even excitedly sent messages to their country to prove that this was a positive signal for the Netherlands to develop relations. However, some people believe that while Britain's economic and military influence in South America remains strong, the Netherlands is now only aware of the importance of participating in the economic and security affairs of South America and even the entire America. Schulman, senior director of the Melbourne think tank Pacific Council, told the Australian Times that the collective reception of foreign ministers by His Majesty William IV would have been better, but the convening of the meeting by Foreign Minister Joseph Beit and the presence of Prime Minister Theo van Linden were important. The Americas will realize that the Dutch government has invested a lot in this region from top to bottom and will continue to invest. The Netherlands will not easily give up its interests in South America, just like the United Kingdom today, especially since the Netherlands moved its capital to Australia. He believes that the Netherlands will never give up South America and hand over its dominant position to Britain or other countries with ambitions there. On the day when Joseph Beit hosted the diplomatic summit, Gladstone of the United Kingdom visited Paris, the capital of the Second French Empire, and was received by Napoleon III. It is said that the two held a secret meeting and then had a good chat at a dinner. Afterwards, Britain and France announced that they would carry out strategic cooperation in the Far East to protect the vested interests of the two countries. To this end, Joseph Beit held an emergency meeting with the foreign ministers of the 6 South American countries. In the end, surprisingly, the ambassador of the Kingdom of Siam to the Netherlands was invited to participate. After the meeting, Joseph Beit condemned the actions of Britain and France as an open attempt to rub salt into the wounds of the Kingdom of Siam. He also expressed his dissatisfaction with France's ambition to expand the colonies of the Kingdom of Siam, believing that this undermined the peace foundation of the stable pattern in Southeast Asia 10 years ago. We strongly condemn these attempts to further harm the Kingdom of Siam, and we once again call on France and Britain to stop further illegal and destabilizing actions. Later, the condemnation of Joseph Beit's call was refuted by Britain and France. Immediately afterwards, Britain and France seemed to ignore the attitude of the Netherlands, and Britain directly dispatched troops to Burma and France to East Cambodia. The Dutch intelligence department believed that Britain and the Netherlands were preparing for a new round of invasion of the Kingdom of Siam, so the King of Siam, Chulalongkorn V, asked William IV for support. Chapter 729 Quadrangle. The Dutch Ministry of Defense confirms that the UK has deployed new second-generation submarines that can attack the Dutch European territory by diving off the east coast of the UK mainland. On March 20, 1879, the Dutch military publicly confirmed for the first time that the UK had deployed more than 5 submarines with a diving range that reached the level of the Dutch second generation in the North Sea port of Kingsland. This greatly shortens the distance for it to strike the Dutch European territory, especially the coastal area of the former Belgian West Flanders province, which is now Dutch territory. Vice Admiral Packlin, commander of the Dutch Atlantic Fleet, said at a press conference held in Rotterdam, where the fleet's headquarters is located, that the 5 second-generation submarines of the UK were built to threaten the Netherlands and challenge the Dutch submarine status. Packlin said, "We are closely watching the movements of these submarines." The Dutch Ministry of Defense built the Quadrangle in Melbourne 10 years ago as the headquarters of the Dutch military, which means to aim at all directions. Since its completion in 1875, the Quadrangle has published an assessment report on the military capabilities of countries around the world every year in accordance with the requirements of the Dutch Parliament. Last year, a military report on Britain in 1878 said that the Royal Navy's current surface warships exceeded those of the Netherlands, reaching 450,000 tons. The submarines had been purchased from the Netherlands since 1870. After 7 years of imitation, the first second-generation submarines were manufactured in 1878, and the number has now reached 5. The report predicts that the Royal Navy submarines will eventually gain the ability to move from the sea to the deep sea, challenge the Dutch submarine hegemony, and even launch an offensive against the Netherlands in the event of an Anglo-Dutch war. Parkland refused to disclose whether any of the 5 Royal Navy ships were currently conducting threatening patrols near the European coast of the Netherlands. In response, on March 21, 1879, the Parliamentary Research Bureau of the Kingdom of the Netherlands commissioned Brown, chief researcher and director of the Amsterdam Peace Research Institute, to prepare an assessment report. The final assessment is that the first generation of submarines purchased by the UK had a range of 50 nautical miles, and the current range of the 5 UK submarines is 300 nautical miles, which enables the submarines of the Royal Navy to dive from the east coast of England to the southwest coast of the Netherlands to attack parts of the Dutch territory. But in order to attack the northern part of the Dutch European territory, these submarines have to sail on the surface for a period of time before they can achieve this. However, the increased range of the British second-generation submarine, named Prince Albert, has changed the situation of the Netherlands' dominance underwater. For this reason, the commander of the Dutch Strategic Command, Admiral Charles, was invited by the Dutch Parliament to go to the Parliament to tell the Dutch Military Committee on February 21, 1879, after the establishment of the new cabinet government, that the new second-generation submarines of the UK have enabled the UK to launch underwater attacks on the Dutch European territory from the UK mainland for the first time, and to sneak close to the Netherlands from a British surface ship fortress on the coast of the UK mainland to target the Dutch territory there. With the news that the UK has mastered the second-generation submarines announced by the quadrangle of the Dutch Ministry of Defence, it immediately ushered in a lot of attention in the Netherlands and even the world. Some news reports in Europe and the United States believe that the British submarine voyage even exceeded 400 to 500 nautical miles. They are now able to use submarines to conduct uninterrupted and determined patrols under the water without anyone noticing, and more submarines will appear, Charles said. They have a real submarine command system and underwater equipment that is as advanced as that of Dutch submarines. It was under such circumstances that on March 15, 1879, Wissenau, the Minister of Defense of the Kingdom of Siam, visited the quadrangle of the Ministry of Defense of the Kingdom of the Netherlands. Wissenau, the Minister of Defense of the Kingdom of Siam, the predecessor of the three countries of Thailand, Cambodia and Laos today, held talks with Mark Rude, the Chief of the General Staff of the Kingdom of the Netherlands, at the quadrangle. The Kingdom of Siam reaffirmed the defense relations between the two countries and was committed to strengthening cooperation. Both sides agreed to continue the bilateral Army Grand Cooperation Exercise and the Maritime Grand Cooperation Exercise. Wissenau's two-day working visit to the quadrangle in Melbourne was Wissenau's 10th visit to the Netherlands Ministry of Defence since he was promoted to the Minister of Defence of the Kingdom of Siam by Chulalongkorn of the Kingdom of Siam in 1870. Wissenau reaffirmed the long-lasting, close and friendly defence relations between the two countries. According to a statement from the Dutch Ministry of Defense, Wissenau revived the long-lasting, close and friendly bilateral defense relations between Siam and the Netherlands during the talks. Mark Rutte and Wissenau stated that the two countries will continue to work hard to strengthen defense cooperation in accordance with the Enhanced Defense Exchange and Security Cooperation Agreement signed in October 1870. The two also agreed to continue to hold the Army Grand Cooperation and Navy Grand Cooperation exercises in the second half of 1879, and look forward to further cooperation in military education, as well as academic exchanges such as academic visits and political security dialogues. During the talks, both sides even believe that the two countries are currently under obvious threat from Britain, so the two countries decided to strengthen military interaction. According to the Enhanced Defense Exchange and Security Cooperation Agreement, the Netherlands and the Kingdom of Siam will also establish a bilateral defense common line, that is, the Netherlands will conduct military visits to the island of Sumatra in the south of the Strait of Malacca in the central and western Dutch East Indies, and the Kingdom of Siam on the Malay Peninsula. Wissenau, on behalf of the Kingdom of Siam, agreed to the request made by the Netherlands. The Kingdom of Siam sold Phuket to the Kingdom of the Netherlands for 1 million Dutch guilders, £40,000. Mark Rutte and Wissenau praised the progress of the discussion on the relevant Memorandum of Understanding. The two also exchanged views on international and regional security developments, and stressed that it is very important for the Netherlands to maintain the security of the entire Southeast Asia, including the Kingdom of Siam. At the same time, Wissenau also emphasized his support for the Netherlands' approach to Chile's position in South America, and emphasized the importance of the Netherlands plus South American foreign ministers meeting in establishing a strategic dialogue and virtual and real cooperation for peace in South America. The two sides also reiterated the importance of maintaining open channels of communication and strengthening mutual understanding and trust, saying that this is crucial to regional peace and security. Mark Rutte later explained to the Dutch newspapers that he had had many rounds of cordial and good dialogues with Wissenau, The Ministry of Defense of the Kingdom of Siam shares the same judgment and concerns of our Ministry of Defense on geopolitical developments and the desire to ensure stability in Southeast Asia. He pointed out, "We also understand that the Ministry of Defense of the Kingdom of Siam is concerned about the threats posed to the Kingdom of Siam by the two major powers of Britain and France in the east and west of Southeast Asia. Therefore, the Kingdom of the Netherlands will help the Kingdom of Siam maintain security in the coming period and will prevent Britain and France from taking risks." The final document of the announcement between the two countries showed that the defense agencies of the Netherlands and the Kingdom of Siam will regularly enhance bilateral relations through bilateral and Dutch invitations to the Kingdom of Siam to participate in Dutch-led multilateral exercises, high-level visits, and professional exchanges. The quadrangle of the Netherlands Ministry of Defense officially announced that it would grant the Ministry of Defense of the Kingdom of Siam the status of a first-level arms partner. Chapter 730, Anti-British French Prime Minister. 1879, British Prime Minister Clayton and his companion, British Foreign Secretary Granville Gower, arrived in Paris for an emergency visit. Second French Empire, Paris, Louvre. Currently, both the Netherlands and the Kingdom of Siam have publicly stated that the defense agencies of the two countries have regularly held more military exchanges and interactions. Napoleon III looked at British Prime Minister Clayton and British Foreign Secretary Granville Gower with a sharp look in his eyes. He said meaningfully, "The meeting between Mark Rutte and Parkland of the Netherlands has regarded the interaction between our two countries in Southeast Asia as a threat." According to the document released by the Dutch Ministry of Defense, Mark Rutte said when he met Parkland that William IV invited King Chulalongkorn of Siam to visit Melbourne for a meeting. The two countries and two pairs strengthened cooperation, and under the strategic leadership of the two kings, the Netherlands and Siam reached a new height of all-round partnership that keeps pace with the times. The alliance relationship between the two countries will also be a model of global alliance cooperation. For the first time, non-Western countries will join the highest level of alliance system built by the Netherlands. The emergence of this situation shows how determined William IV is. Napoleon III glanced at the two people, and then said with a little strangeness, "It seems that the Netherlands is really worried about Britain." Claxton and Granville immediately showed a complicated look when they heard it. Obviously, this series of actions by the Netherlands are aimed at confronting Britain. He had received the news of this manuscript through MI5 a long time ago. In the manuscript, Mark Rutte directly pointed out that the security of the Asia-Pacific region in the Far East was disturbed by the global power of Britain, and the situation was stable but worrying. The Netherlands and Siam established to strengthen the security communication between the Malay Peninsula and Indochina Peninsula, and jointly maintain regional peace and stability. Even Parkland took the initiative to further propose to Mark Rutte that the two countries further improve the high-level exchanges between the two countries' militaries and the level of joint exercises and training under the leadership of the Netherlands and the cooperation of the Kingdom of Siam, promote the Netherlands to help Siamese military personnel, let the Kingdom of Siam join the Netherlands Indo-Pacific Multilateral Framework Security Cooperation, and promote the Siamese Army to join the Netherlands Indo-Pacific and Global Strategy, showing that the Kingdom of Siam has fully leaned towards the Netherlands. This is exactly what Claxton is worried about. Originally, he wanted to unite the Second French Empire to increase pressure on the Netherlands, but now it has led to the Netherlands taking a different approach, allowing the Kingdom of Siam to directly get on the Dutch chariot from a position of unwillingness to lean towards the Netherlands. This was something Claxton did not expect at all. Looking at Napoleon III's slightly sarcastic eyes, he understood that this was a mockery of the British who were scheming all day long, but ended up hitting a wall after many attempts to trick the Netherlands. "Clayton, Your Majesty's worry is unreasonable. You should know that when Britain chose to cooperate with France in Southeast Asia, it anticipated this situation. Therefore, we should not worry at this time, but should directly find a way to solve the difficulties currently caused by the Netherlands and the Kingdom of Siam." Granville Gower responded immediately after hearing this, "Yes, Your Majesty, I think it is time for Britain and France, as two major European countries, to take some actions to maintain our status." "Action? Tell me how to do it." Napoleon III glanced at Patrice MacMahon next to him unhappily. The latter cleverly said with dissatisfaction, "More than a decade ago, when we faced the sanctions of the International Court of Justice in The Hague led by the Netherlands alone, Britain chose to watch. Even now, we have established a southern regime of the French Third Republic in the south, which is supported by Bismarck of the German Empire, But the two parts of Britain are helping each other. How do you think the French Empire, which has been divided, should treat the Netherlands? Speaking of this, he even showed a sincere resentment. Seeing this, Clayton and Granville's faces changed slightly. Patrice McMahon was born in Saint-Valois in 1808. He was a descendant of the Jacobite Irish family. His grandfather was a doctor and became a French citizen in 1775. His father was a major general in the French army at the time, which made his family enter the upper class of a great country. He was the 16th of his father's 19 children. In 1825, he joined the French army according to his father's wishes and graduated from the French Saint-Cyr Military Academy in 1827. He was promoted to brigadier general after winning many military exploits. In 1852, he supported Napoleon II's enthronement and stood on the right side. He was promoted to division commander by Napoleon II because of his military exploits in the colonial war. In 1854, before his father passed away, he arranged a marriage for him, which officially allowed him to enter the ranks of the highest-level family in France. He married Elizabeth de Lacroix, the daughter of the Duke of Castries. Behind this lady was an absolute French Orthodox, and he officially entered the French aristocracy because of her. He became a count in 1857, and became famous in the Crimean War in 185 and the Battle of Magenta in the Franco-Austrian War. He was promoted to Marshal of France by Napoleon III and was named Duke of Magenta. Since then, he has become a close military favorite of Napoleon III. He commanded the First Army in the Franco-Prussian War, and was captured by Prussia with Napoleon III after being injured in the Battle of Sedan. He was also released with Napoleon III at the end of 1870, and then became the military representative of Napoleon III in the French military. He was a typical royalist, and had many fierce wars with the Southern Republicans in his career. Because of his loyalty, with the support of Napoleon III, he replaced Prime Minister Charles and began to be elected as the Prime Minister of France in 1873. The moderate Charles became the Speaker of the French House of Representatives and guarded the Parliament for Napoleon III. Patrice McMahon is an Irish French. His grandfather was a victim of the famous survival of the fittest policy of reducing the local population after the British Empire launched an attack on Scotland and Ireland from England and Wales and took over. The poor harvest in Ireland caused more than 1 million people to starve to death in Ireland. It was because of this situation that old McMahon left his homeland and came to France. Patrice McMahon's father was also hostile to Britain during his lifetime, and the two did not think that Patrice McMahon would be pro-British. They knew that their current strategy of trying to get the Second French Empire to join Britain's fight against the Netherlands would invisibly increase the difficulty. Granville stood up and said, "Prime Minister Patrice's words are hard to agree with. There were major differences between Britain and France back then. It is understandable that everyone made their own choices for their own interests, but now everyone's positions in Southeast Asia are close. I don't think it would be a wise choice for the French Empire and Britain to continue to entangle those old past events." Chapter 731 South America, Reconnaissance Company vs. Reconnaissance Company. South America, north of Puerto Montt in northern Chile and south of Valdivia. To the west of Valdivia is the sea, and to the east is the side of the Andal Mountains, on a vast mountain. Dozens of British Malay Peninsula soldiers in British Army uniforms were in the messy wilderness. Many vultures hovering in the solemnity spread their wide wings but stared at the wounded on the ground. Not far away, some wild wolves and vultures were fighting to eat the corpses next to them. The wounded gathered in a circle, with the dark muzzles of their rifles pointed at the wolves and vultures outside, and everyone's face showed fear. Damn, this is the nth time. The leader of this group of people, if anyone knows the British military rank insignia, must know that this person's insignia of 2 stars and a crown represents that this person is a British captain. The sergeant looked at the corpses on the ground and the former companions who were eaten by them, and said angrily with a gloomy face, "Captain, there are 21 people in total. Together with the previous 4 times, we have lost a total of 89 people. And the supplies they escorted have disappeared," the sergeant with a 3-bar badge next to him reported. "Are there any more clues?" the captain asked. "Yes," the sergeant suddenly said. The captain was immediately delighted and asked hurriedly, "What clues?" "Captain, please look." The sergeant walked to the ground and pointed to the small continuous marks. He said, "There are the same marks in all places." This is the captain's pupils shrank suddenly. "These are tire marks," which are left when a bicycle is ridden on the mountain. Currently in the Far East, the Netherlands is the largest bicycle country. However, this is not a street, it is in the wilderness. How can there be tire marks of bicycles? A bicycle currently sells for £30 in the UK, and the current per capita income in the UK is about £150. In other words, if a British person wants to buy a bicycle, he needs about 1/5 of his annual income, more than 2 months' salary, and this is the average salary. The lower-class British can have an annual income of £100. Therefore, the captain knew that in the UK, only 1 in 10 people can afford and are willing to buy a bicycle. Because of the scarcity of steel, the country has issued a steel restriction order, and only 1% of people can buy bicycles, so there are only tens of thousands of bicycles in the whole UK. It is less than the per capita horse and vehicle in the UK. He does not think that bicycles in South America can be so popular that they exist in the wilderness. In South America, the most developed country is Argentina, but the number of bicycles in Argentina is only useful for families of rich and powerful people. What's more, it is on the front line of the battlefield in North and South Chile. The captain of the Kingdom of the Netherlands frowned. Not necessarily. Although there are many bicycles in the Netherlands, it is impossible for them to drive the bicycles here. But why did they drive the bicycles here? The captain took a deep breath, his face gloomy and uncertain, and his mind was full of thoughts. With the strength of the Netherlands, it would naturally not do some humble tricks. But if it was the Netherlands, it would be a troublesome thing, because until now, although he had some speculations, it had not been confirmed. If this was true, then Britain would encounter unprecedented troubles. Just as he was thinking, suddenly, he heard all the vultures swooping towards the sky, yes, escaping for their lives. And the wild wolves also ran away. He raised his head, and suddenly his eyes showed fear. At this moment, he knew that the 200-man company he led from the UK to participate in southern Chile was going to be wiped out. Our British colleagues, raise your hands. If not, don't blame us for killing you without mercy. The British captain's face turned pale. Looking at the team that appeared around him, which was no less than a complete company, and the Dutch tricolour flags they were wearing, he knew that his speculation was correct. The Netherlands actually used bicycles to do scout work. He regretted not having someone report this discovery to Puerto Montt as soon as possible. He could even imagine the scene of the Netherlands using bicycles to defeat Britain in the future. He looked at the remaining 40 or so people, and seeing that they were also panicking, he sighed and couldn't help but put down the rifle he had just picked up in his hand. Then, he took out the pistol from his waist and threw it 3 meters away. As he moved, all his subordinates unloaded their weapons. He listened to these voices and couldn't help but close his eyes. Just when he thought he would be detained as a prisoner by the other side in northern Chile, the man who had just finished speaking suddenly smiled and ordered his subordinates in Dutch, "Brothers, throw away all your weapons and fight on the spot." He understood Dutch, but at this moment he would rather not understand it. "No, you." Bang! The captain was anxious. He was about to speak, but a bullet hit his head. He died with his eyes wide open and fell backwards, which became his fate. 3 minutes after the bullet sounded, more than 40 British scouts were added to the field. Just now we made a comeback. Jerry was the captain of this team. He was the captain of the reconnaissance company of the 10,000-man division army of the South American Five-Nation Alliance. This time his task was to receive the order from Castillo, the Secretary General of the Five-Nation Alliance, to investigate the defense intelligence of South Chile. He originally thought it was an easy task. After all, he was facing an irregular army like South Chile with backward equipment. But today's experience made him realize that he was wrong. The British were actually helping South Chile with reconnaissance work. From morning to now at 4 o'clock in the afternoon, he finally dealt with all these British. He did not reveal his secrets, but his face suddenly changed. Now the opponent's reconnaissance company has been completely killed. If the opponent cannot wait for news, then he will definitely know that he has encountered an accident and will definitely strengthen his defense. Thinking of this, he immediately ordered everyone to return to La Union. There, the Five-Nation Coalition and the temporary headquarters of the Northern Chilean Army were waiting for his news. When Castillo received the relevant intelligence from the UK, he frowned. Britain is currently joining forces with France in Southeast Asia to deal with us, trying to increase pressure on us in the Netherlands. This time, His Majesty asked us to attack way to save Zhao. Well, that's what His Majesty said. It is said that the Far East is very famous for military strategies. In this case, Castillo gritted his teeth and finally said directly to the adjutant next to him, "Order all the commanders of the other countries in the five-nation coalition to tell them that I have decided to fully help northern Chile attack southern Chile. Tell them to start preparing an attack in an hour." Chapter 732, Ready to Go, Straight to Huanglong. Just half a month before Castillo ordered the attack on southern Chile, William IV had convened a Privy Council meeting in Melbourne and summoned members of the Dutch Privy Council. Members of the Kingdom of the Netherlands arrived in the Privy Council meeting room. Cabinet government members, Prime Minister Theo van Linden, Deputy Prime Minister Jules Darneton, Chief Finance Minister John Press, Foreign Minister Joseph Beit, Justice Minister Berg, Interior Minister David Blank, Industry Minister Murray Philip, Transport Minister Byers, Education Minister Hester, Energy Minister Cromwell, Chief Justice Robert Cook, Privy Council President and Speaker of the House of Commons Baron Caslin, Lord Privy Seal and Speaker of the House of Lords Marcus Andrew Smith. In addition, military representatives include Chief of Staff Mark Rudd, Defense Minister Fox, Navy Minister Jan Peter, Army Minister Peter de Jong, Navy Chief of Staff Joseph Carls, Army Chief of Staff Jupp Bill, and Armaments Minister Louis Bell. In addition, all members of the Royal Security Council of the Netherlands, that is, think tank, who served William IV also participated. Cantor, Director of the National Security Council of the Netherlands and Coordinator of Atlantic Affairs, Akshay, Coordinator of the Indian Ocean and Pacific, Samuel, Coordinator of Europe and Africa, and Felix, Coordinator of the Americas. These people have not changed their positions for more than 10 years, but new members have been added this year. There are Mr. an expert on the British Empire project of the Netherlands Centre for Strategic and International Studies, Brown, Chief Researcher and Director of the Amsterdam Peace Research Institute, Krim, Director and Chief Researcher of the Australia Institute, Tim, Director of the Dutch Governance Project of the Rotterdam National Peace Foundation, Baroch, Director of the Centre for Strategic and Budgetary Assessments, a think tank at the University of The Hague in the Netherlands. The entire Royal Security Council consists of 9 people. At present, the internal structure of the Kingdom of the Netherlands has been improved day by day under the advanced cognition of William IV, and there are also some clear divisions in terms of professions. The civil servants of the cabinet government are responsible for the internal and external affairs of the Kingdom of the Netherlands, and the Ministry of Defense of the Quadrangle is responsible for the guarding of the Netherlands, recruiting troops and training, and war. Of course, they are also responsible for following the arrangements of the General Staff and carrying out various war tasks. In general, although the Kingdom of the Netherlands stepped down due to the failure of the Liberal Party in the election and the civil officials were replaced, the military was controlled by the General Staff, which means that the military power of military officers was still in the hands of William IV. There was no change. William IV sat above the King's seat in the Privy Council. On the right were the cabinet government ministers headed by Prime Minister Theo van Linden, and on the right were the military generals of Chief of the General Staff Mark Rudd. On the second floor outside were the think tank members of William IV. William IV looked down at the ministers below and asked in a cold voice, "You all know that Britain and France are preparing to join forces in Southeast Asia, right? Your Majesty, the Royal Intelligence Agency has informed us of the situation," said Prime Minister Linden. "That's good, you all know. There's no need to say more, William IV. It has already happened. The situation has been informed. It's hard for us to find out what the private deal between Britain and France is. The important thing is this time, I want to give Britain and France a shocking blow. Southern Chile is just right. You can discuss how to take over southern Chile with the cooperation of Argentina's mitre. Britain and Germany are vying to play in South America, which has messed up the situation and achieved his original plan. Originally, William IV planned to let the Netherlands help the government of northern Chile defeat the South as soon as possible. But the existence of Britain made him hesitant. Now Britain actually chose to unite with France at this time, which seems to besiege a way to save Zhao and put pressure on the Netherlands in Southeast Asia. In this case, I will strike first, and also besiege a way to save Zhao, but I will strike in South America. Now it's just right that Britain jumped out first, and it saves him from considering other places. Except for the members of the royal think tank, everyone in the entire conference room looked at each other, and they couldn't turn around for a while. Should we strengthen the defense of Sumatra and help the Kingdom of Siam resist Britain and France? Why is it that they are going to attack directly in South America now? Everyone was thinking about what William IV meant, but Prime Minister Lyndon asked first, "Your Majesty means that the Netherlands should directly push the five-nation coalition to cooperate with northern Chile to attack southern Chile?" "No, I want the Netherlands to take the initiative to attack and occupy southern Chile with a five-nation coalition," William IV said. "Northern Chile is northern Chile, and the five-nation coalition is the five-nation coalition. It is impossible for northern Chile to be the protagonist. He needs the five-nation coalition to show its terrifying ability in front of the world, and also let the four countries except the Netherlands return to their hearts. The Netherlands needs them to rely on this army in the future, gradually tie their national defense to it, and from then on, they can't do without the protection of the Netherlands." So William IV's idea is that after defeating South Chile and the British troops stationed there, the five-nation alliance will sign a treaty with Arthur Luzon's North Chilean government to make Puerto Montt a branch of the five-nation alliance, second only to Ecuador, where the headquarters is located. In the future, the five-nation alliance will rely on there to play a greater role in South America. This is what he and the royal think tank have planned. He has decided that if Arthur Luzon is unwilling at that time, he doesn't mind replacing someone to become the new president of Chile, a Pacific Chilean president who is close to the Netherlands. William IV will never let him become powerful or even hostile to the Netherlands. Thinking of this, William IV revealed his thoughts. "If it is just to defeat South Chile and the British garrison, then we only need to eliminate them," said Lyndon. "Do you mean to go straight to Huanglong?" William IV asked. "That's right. Attacking cities and looting villages takes too much time. We can directly attack the capital of southern Chile, Puerto Montt. Once we capture Puerto Montt, the rest of southern Chile will be undefended and it will be much easier to deal with it," Lyndon said. William IV nodded slightly. Lyndon's idea was good. A single battle can save a lot of trouble. Of course, the premise is that the Netherlands has enough strength to crush the British and southern Chilean troops there, otherwise it would be wishful thinking to decide the outcome of the battle. Afterwards, everyone discussed the specific details of the attack on Puerto Montt in southern Chile. In fact, there was nothing to discuss. The attack on southern Chile was completely based on strength. As long as the army was large enough, the other details were not important. This is an opportunity for the five-nation coalition to demonstrate its strength. We must create a sensational effect and establish our military influence in South America in the future. This battle will also determine the outcome. At this time, Army Minister Peter de Jong and Army Chief of Staff Jopil looked at each other and said immediately, "Your Majesty, the 100,000 bicycle troops have completed training and can achieve the effect of surprise." William IV smiled and nodded. "It's time to let them show up, okay." Chapter 733, The Proud Briton Who Got Slapped in the Face. 1879, Joseph Chamberlain, Minister of Foreign Trade of the British Clayton Cabinet government, who had just visited Argentina. His second son was Neville Chamberlain, the British Prime Minister during World War II, and his eldest son Austen Chamberlain was the British Foreign Secretary from 1924 to 1927, visited Puerto Montt in southern Chile. In Puerto Montt, he reiterated that Britain's commitment to the security of southern Chile was unwavering, and if the sovereignty of southern Chile was attacked by countries other than northern Chile, Britain would be committed to defending the security of the government of southern Chile. This important future successor of the Liberal Party, whom Clayton valued, said when he met with José Mascherano that Britain and southern Chile had a long history of relations, and that this relationship was established when the two countries fought against the Spanish Empire, which was very important to the security of Chile and the entire South America. Joseph Chamberlain also declared that Britain would stand on the same front with southern Chile on the issue of the Strait of Magellan and the security of the Eastern Pacific Ocean to maintain the relationship between Britain and Chile. Joseph Chamberlain, 42 years old and former mayor of Birmingham, said, "If the armed forces, naval warships or land forces of South Chile are attacked in the area under the jurisdiction of South Chile, it will trigger the mutual defense commitment between Britain and South Chile. This is our unwavering commitment to South Chile." Mascherano reiterated that the relationship between South Chile and Britain is still solid and important, and he cannot foresee what the future of South Chile will be if South Chile loses British support, but he made it clear that Britain is South Chile's most important ally. Although he is not British Prime Minister Claystone and Foreign Secretary Granville, and his weight is not enough, Joseph Chamberlain has been the mayor of Birmingham, and he also led the Whig Party's national campaign when Claystone ran for prime minister in 1876. Claystone's victory also made him famous. Therefore, many people predict that he will have a bright future as a member of the cabinet at the age of 42. So his arrival clearly shows the Netherlands that Britain will not give up South Chile. A senior British government official told The Times of London earlier that Joseph Chamberlain's visit to Argentina and South Chile was to strengthen bilateral relations with the two southernmost partners and allies in South America. He reaffirmed the maintenance of Britain's alliance with Argentina and South Chile, and reiterated Britain's countermeasures against the pressure and military force projection of the Netherlands there. When Joseph Chamberlain met with Argentine President Mitre earlier, he and Mitre discussed the economic and security relations between Britain and Argentina, including specific discussions on how to strengthen the two countries plus defense cooperation agreement in the next 10 years. The two also expressed uneasiness about the situation in Uruguay and made implicit warnings to Paraguay. He also met with members of the Argentine cabinet and delivered a speech in the Argentine parliament. In this regard, Volt, director of South American affairs at the British think tank Centre for Strategic and International Studies, told The Times of London that although Joseph Chamberlain's trip to Argentina would anger the Netherlands, it was more important for Britain to make Argentina feel at ease after betraying the Netherlands. Even for this reason, Britain was willing to sell Britain's active warships and arms to Argentina. Obviously, everyone foresaw that Britain had already believed that Argentina was an important ally of Britain and had become Britain's most important ally in South America. Horizontal ellipsis. The establishment of an alliance between Argentina and Britain was no small matter for all countries and forces in South America. In addition to the Netherlands, all major forces, including the Brazilian Empire, were watching the changes. The governments of northern and southern France, the German Empire, the Russian Empire, the Ottoman Empire, and the Austro-Hungarian Empire in Europe also chose to watch, and even allies such as Sweden, Denmark, and Spain were silent. Obviously, they all wanted to see how the Netherlands would react. If the Netherlands swallowed its breath, then it is estimated that many forces would deepen their relations with Argentina, a major granary exporter in the world, like Britain, and make more moves to harm the interests of the Netherlands. After all, the Netherlands has risen again for 20 years, and it is not only in South America that it has occupied such an important market share and security influence. Including the United States, the Netherlands has a considerable influence. Even in Europe, where there are many powerful countries, before the Netherlands moved its capital to Melbourne, Australia, it was also a presence that countries in Europe were vying to win over, and it was also the convener of small and medium-sized countries. Therefore, the market of various industries in small and medium-sized countries occupies a considerable share. Even the Dutch arms are already the best-selling in the world, accounting for more than 50% of the global market share. This is not just about the amount, but also the quantity. With such huge interests, as long as the Netherlands shows a little weakness, it will attract jackals and tigers, dividing and devouring the market share and security influence of the Netherlands. Because of this, the embassies in the Netherlands are keeping a close eye on the Dutch Ministry of Defense and the Ministry of Foreign Affairs. While watching the changes, they are also paying close attention to the degree of reaction of the Netherlands. However, the British have long been excited by Joseph Chamberlain's visit, and even many members of the Conservative Party's opposition Tory party have expressed their agreement with Joseph Chamberlain's statement. The leader of the Tory party, former Prime Minister Disraeli, said to the British Times, "This is the attitude that Britain should hold. I hope that other members of the Clayton cabinet government should act like Joseph Chamberlain, not weak." Countless capitalists, interest groups or family forces that were previously suppressed by Dutch capital all felt like they had gotten revenge. They wantonly criticized the society and government of the Kingdom of the Netherlands, and were ready to take back the share of industrial products and arms occupied by the Netherlands. Argentina's turn to Britain made all the British seem to have experienced a great victory and were reaping rich spoils. And just when they were gloating, the Kingdom of the Netherlands took action. On March 26, 1879, half a month after Joseph Chamberlain visited Argentina and southern Chile, Puerto Montt, the temporary capital of southern Chile, the red sun rose in the east, and when the first ray of sunlight fell on the majestic eastern mountains across South America, countless creeping figures suddenly appeared on the land north of Puerto Montt from all directions. Like millions of ants, they crawled towards the city of Puerto Montt. In the blink of an eye, the entire northern part of Puerto Montt was surrounded by these figures. When the defense soldiers on Puerto Montt discovered and blew the whistle, These things were like a dark cloud covering the city, making the entire Puerto Montt feel depressed. If there is a word to describe it, it is called, "The sky so gray and the ground is so quiet." Chapter 734. How did they accomplish the sneak attack? 1879, Joseph Beit, the Minister of Foreign Affairs of the Netherlands, condemned a defense agreement between Britain and Argentina and announced that he would not give up supporting northern Chile. Joseph Beit, the Minister of Foreign Affairs of the Netherlands, also announced that the Ministry of Defense would send 10,000 more troops to the front line in northern Chile. The Ministry of Defense of the Netherlands also announced that the Dutch military would continue to pay attention to the development of the war there, and the military would support it when necessary to prevent other countries from damaging the interests of the Netherlands. This was a counterattack against the actions of Joseph Chamberlain, the British Minister of Foreign Trade. Seeing this, all countries looked forward to the actions of Britain and the Netherlands and Chile. In Argentina, intelligence personnel from all countries have discovered that President Mitre has been holding cabinet government meetings. No one knows what he is going to do, but it is definitely related to the tension between Britain and the Netherlands and Chile. Brazil's Pedro II and Prime Minister Fonseca have also historically put aside their differences. The two sides held various consultations between the military and the cabinet government in the capital São Paulo, and they are obviously preparing for a possible head-on war between Britain and the Netherlands. Paraguay frequently showed its relationship with the German Empire. Uruguay seemed to be looking for a backer, and finally reluctantly accepted the German Empire. Even the German Empire's warships are currently stationed in Montevideo. On March 16, 1879, Guayaquil, the largest port city in El Guayaquil. Other South American countries are allies of the Netherlands, such as Colombia, Venezuela, El Guayaquil, Bolivia, Peru, etc. The headquarters of the Five-Nation Alliance is in Guayaquil. Although Ecuadorian President Merino is a landlord, he has now become a guest. Because this is the headquarters of the Five-Nation Alliance, it is the Secretary General of the Five-Nation Alliance headquarters, the Dutch Lieutenant General, and the Deputy Minister of the Dutch Army Castillo who has the final say. In front of him are Colombian President Mosquera, Peruvian President Prado, Bolivian Porter, and Venezuelan President Herrera, who is invited by the Dutch Ministry of Defense Army Lieutenant General Castillo, the Deputy Minister of the Army. As you all know, the Netherlands is currently facing a challenge from the United Kingdom, and the Netherlands needs help from all countries. If all countries can send troops to join the Netherlands in its fight against the United Kingdom, then any people and countries that threaten your power in the future will be enemies of our Kingdom of the Netherlands. Castillo looked at the presidents of these small and medium-sized South American countries with complicated expressions and said, "We in the Netherlands are willing to help your families to exist permanently in various countries." Hearing this, everyone's heart was moved. He did not say to help the country, but only to help their families consolidate their status. Although Castillo's promise seemed to be a discount, it actually hit the vital points of the people present more accurately. As powerful people in various countries, they naturally have opponents and those who oppose their long-term rule. Therefore, they were shocked when the Netherlands actually supported Mascherano in Chile some time ago and let Artur Lozon overthrow him with the support of the Netherlands. While being frightened by the power of the Netherlands, they were also afraid that they would become the next Mascherano supported by the Netherlands. Therefore, during this period of time, they had the idea of distancing themselves from the Netherlands. This is human nature, and the fear of the unknown will be like this. Castillo had organized confrontations in South Africa for many years, so he naturally had a good grasp of people's hearts. "Everyone, we know that Britain, France and Germany are in contact with you now." Ignoring their surprise, Castillo continued, "We are willing to maintain our relationship with your family and your countries. Of course, if you think Argentina is a good example, I think Chile is more alarming." Except for Castillo, everyone couldn't help but feel dissatisfied, but more helpless. No one knows how many secret agents the Netherlands has arranged in various countries. Maybe they have them around. In the face of such an unknown, it seems that being able to protect the interests of their own families makes it easier for them to convince themselves than national interests. In the end, under the carrot and stick, Castillo got what he wanted. On March 18, 1879, Venezuela became a new member of the Five-Nation Alliance. Venezuelan President Herrera announced in Guayaquil that he would send 15,000 troops to join the Six-Nation Alliance. No, it should be called the Southern Alliance Army. Each country also announced an increase of 5,000 troops, and the Netherlands announced an increase of 10,000. At this point, the entire Southern Confederate Army reached 95,000. In response, the British Clayton government said it did not care about the number of troops in the alliance, because Britain has always won with more, and the number of our enemies is not proportional to the record. As Clayton's confident face appeared on the front page of major British newspapers, the whole of Britain was relieved. However, can we really rest assured? On March 27, 1879, when the whole of Britain was full of confidence, a message came, which shocked everyone. The Six Nation Coalition led by the Netherlands dispatched 40,000 people and suddenly attacked Puerto Montt on the morning of the 26th. The president of South Chile, Mascaeno, is currently leading his subordinates to flee. Under the escort of British warships, Mascaeno finally took only 1,000 South Chilean direct descendants to South Africa. The rest either surrendered or broke through the border between Argentina and Chile and fled to the provinces of Yucuén and Rio Negro in southern Argentina. As the news came out, the world's attention turned from the Netherlands to Britain. After all, this slap was too loud. German Empire, Berlin. As the situation in South America came, William I urgently convened a small-scale meeting. Don't speak too aggressively, be careful not to bite your tongue, Bismarck said sarcastically. In response, William I nodded in agreement. Suddenly, he saw the chief of the general staff Moltke frowning, knowing that he had an idea. So he asked, "Sir Moltke, do you have anything to say?" Bismarck and others also looked at him. Moltke raised his head when he heard the words, and said with a heavy tone, "Your Majesty, please look here. The Dutch sneak attack from Valdivia to Puerto Montt took so short a time, so short that the British and South Chileans couldn't react. Isn't this a bit incredible?" Bismarck heard the words and his heart moved immediately. Crown Prince Frederick also said in confusion, "Yes, there's Osorno, which is ruled by southern Chile. If it is a sea attack and landing, there must be a dock. Moreover, the British Navy is experienced, and there is no reason not to prepare for this in advance. So there is only one possibility, that is, this attack is unexpected, and the attack must bypass Osorno. The group shock of horses cannot be concealed." He raised his head. "I think, either the Netherlands attacked from the direction of Argentina, or the Netherlands has some way to advance quickly and silently to Puerto Montt without anyone noticing. William I, Argentina should not be possible, so now we really don't understand their method." At the same time, Buckingham Palace was also furious. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelis. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 735, The Bicycle Troops' First Battle in the World. British Empire, Buckingham Palace. Queen Victoria, first in line to the throne, Prince Edward, Duke of Wales, and second in line, Prince Alfred, Duke of Edinburgh. In addition to their royal family members, there are also Prime Minister Clayton, Foreign Secretary Granville, Chancellor of the Exchequer Bruce, First Lord of the Admiralty Dundas, and Secretary of War Key. Queen Victoria said angrily, "Tell me, how many people looked down upon you on the streets of London this morning? Sir Key, can you answer?" Key lowered his head even lower than before. "My Secretary of War, please answer my question." Queen Victoria had reason to be angry. At least all these people in front of her thought that the Netherlands would not dare to take action first, but now they have taken action first, and they have directly attacked Huanggang and taken over the entire southern Chile. In just 1 week, our soldiers in southern Chile have either fled or been captured. Can anyone tell me where the problem lies? And how can we remedy it? At present, all of us present here have been questioned and criticized behind our backs, and accused of being just talking big and pretending not to do anything. I don't know if you feel ashamed, but I am very embarrassed. At this point, the Queen stared at Key with a sharp look, as if she wanted to eat him, and finally said mercilessly, "If there is no reasonable reason, I think the Ministry of Defense needs to be adjusted." Key shuddered all over when he heard this, and the others also felt cold in their hearts. The Queen's words were too obvious. She was going to sacrifice the cart to save the king. If Key could not convince the Queen, he would face the result of being abandoned. Key was still as calm as before, and hurriedly said, "The Dutch team will be led by Castillo this time." As soon as Castillo's name came out, the entire Buckingham Palace was silent. Everyone, including the Queen, couldn't help but think of the South African War 15 years ago. In that war, a total of 200,000 people were mobilized, but Britain suffered more than 50,000 casualties in the end. Moreover, the ceasefire was only stopped when the 450,000 Boers, led by Castillo, who were all soldiers, retreated automatically. That war brought Britain down from the altar and suffered heavy losses. Since then, Britain has been afraid of the Netherlands after the return of the Boers. Since then, Britain has never taken the initiative to go to war with the Netherlands. The Netherlands, led by William IV, has been smooth sailing in the future. After the space for peaceful development has been stabilized, after 15 years of rapid development, it has become a powerful country, the Netherlands, one of the world's major powers. Although the population is only 3/5 of that of Britain, it is a disadvantage, but the Dutch economy has become the world's largest economy comparable to Britain with the birth of various black tech industries, especially the invention of electrical products, such as automobiles. This makes the entire British people very upset that they gave Australia to the Netherlands, and they are even more reluctant to mention Castillo, who is the basis of these prerequisites. If Castillo hadn't scared the British in South Africa, the Netherlands would not have had the opportunity to develop peacefully for so many years. Therefore, when Key mentioned Castillo again, everyone suddenly felt that Key's defeat seemed to be excusable. Even Queen Victoria thought so. However, Prince Alfred's question at this time made Key's heart, which had been relieved for a while, rise again. Prince Alfred said, even if it was Castillo, he would need tools to complete the sneak attack. He looked at Key calmly and asked, "Your Excellency, the Minister of War, I think we still need to be more detailed. After all, there are many smart people among the citizens of London and the British Empire. We must prevent them from posting articles and then we can't answer them, right?" Crown Prince Edward looked at him sharply, and looked at Key soothingly. "Your Excellency, Key, please speak out." Key was a staunch supporter of his succession to the throne, but it was the Minister of the Navy Bruce next to him who was between him and Prince Alfred. As if influenced by Crown Prince Edward, Key calmed down. He smiled bitterly and said, "In fact, the reason why the Netherlands launched such a surprise attack this time is mainly due to the changes in the Netherlands' means of transportation." Transportation? Claxton immediately asked, "What changes?" Crown Prince Edward naturally needed to stand up and protect himself at this time. He explained to Claxton, "It's a bicycle." He looked up and said to the Queen in detail, "The Netherlands actually used bicycles in this sneak attack and abandoned the horses they used in the past." Key, bicycles are different from horses. Bicycles can be lifted on the shoulders so that people cannot detect the sound, but it is difficult for horses to do so on a large scale. This time, more than 10,000 Dutch bicycle troops participated in the battle. They deceived the Osorno outpost troops in the north of Puerto Montt and suddenly appeared outside Puerto Montt. As a result, in order to preserve our strength, our Navy could only lead the 2,000 British Army and 1,000 Mascaiano soldiers stationed there to leave in a hurry. Clayton and Queen Victoria's faces changed drastically when they heard this. Prince Alfred was surprised and said, "The Netherlands has a new type of soldier. If it is a bicycle unit, it is understandable." He sighed. "The Dutch military reform has taken a big step." With the exposure of the Netherlands using bicycle troops to participate in the war, countries around the world were stunned. Bicycles. Soon bicycles attracted the attention of the military of various countries, especially British newspapers reported on the tactics used by the Netherlands in war, which was even more eye-catching. The Netherlands used these bicycles to divide small teams. These bicycle teams could rely on their super-high flexibility to boldly penetrate into southern Chile to obtain intelligence, and sometimes even before they carried out sneak attacks on enemy camps. At the same time, they could also act as the army's charge, flexibly deployed on the front line, and send bicycle troops wherever reconnaissance and support were needed. They also occasionally performed tasks such as covering the flanks and breaking off the rear. In addition to the front line, many people also know that the bicycle troops are in the rear, and they also play another role in the Six Nation Coalition organized by the Netherlands to help northern Chile. They are to guard against sneak attacks from the other side, detect the other side's actions in large quantities, and serve as the rear guard of the retreating troops. At the same time, they can also serve as logistics troops for transporting materials. With the exposure of a large number of tactics used by the Netherlands to use bicycle troops, in addition to the powerful countries such as Britain, France, Germany, Russia, and the United States, In addition to some countries with very weak industrial bases, there is no way to provide more large military horses and warships for the army. Bicycles provide another optimal choice. This type of vehicle does not require fuel, does not require cumbersome maintenance, and is entirely driven by manpower, which can greatly improve the mobility of the army. As these benefits are disclosed one by one, bicycles have suddenly become the future military development strategy goal of various countries. Chapter 736, Textbook-level patriotic figure. Compared to war horses, cars and warships, bicycles are cheap, easy to maintain, and highly flexible. They increase the marching speed of soldiers carrying heavy loads on the battlefield from 5 km per hour to 20 km per hour, greatly reducing physical energy consumption. They can run on the bike and fight when they get off the bike. Alexander II then ordered that the Russian Empire must also have an advanced bicycle force, with a minimum of no less than 50,000 bicycle troops. Looking around, he finally found that the only country that could support the Russian Empire to complete the purchase of bicycles at one time was the Kingdom of the Netherlands. After all, the bicycle patent was in the Netherlands, and the world's largest bicycle company was the Dutch East India Company. In the end, Alexander II finally sent a telegram to William IV, proposing an order to purchase 50,000 bicycles. Of course, not only Alexander II of the Russian Empire, but also Spain, Italy, Denmark, Sweden, Siam, Greece, the Ottoman Empire, and South American countries all proposed the idea of ordering bicycles to the Netherlands. After all, their industrial strength was not as good as that of Britain, the German Empire, the United States, France, etc., which had enough steel and machine models. Therefore, the Netherlands became their source of orders for bicycles. Horizontal ellipsis. April 5, 1879. Kingdom of the Netherlands. Prime Minister Lynden of Hennen, Your Majesty, what should we do now? Which country should we contribute to first? The Russian Empire. William IV had already foreseen this scene. The Netherlands began to promote the modernization of bicycles in 1861, reforming them according to the later structure to the later pedals and 2 wheels and chain mechanism. Reinforced plastic tires were born in 1862, and the modern bicycle model was complete. In the early days, it was a leisure equipment for wealthy Dutch gentry, and then it slowly evolved from Dutch racing bicycles to a popular means of transportation in the Netherlands. Soon, especially after the advent of rubber tires, William IV and military experts saw the value of bicycles in wartime. It is not surprising that William IV first secretly carried out this new technology, because this is the origin of bicycles. Industrial advancement only requires convenience. Bicycles are not only on the front line. At present, most Dutch military advocates promote bicycles as reconnaissance vehicles, allowing scouts to approach the front line or ride near enemy troops to collect data, and then quickly bring the information to friendly lines. This time, the Dutch army led the five-nation coalition to use bicycle soldiers as a new type of cavalry. Bicycle infantry, like horse soldiers, usually get off and fight on foot after arriving at the battlefield. Bicycle infantry can reach more places more flexibly and quickly, and often serve as assault troops. This time on the battlefield in southern Chile, bicycle infantry held the enemy's troops until other troops could arrive. So the bicycle troops can be said to have made the greatest contribution. William IV couldn't help but feel a little proud. The Netherlands has held civilian bicycle competitions in various places every year for more than 10 years, so there are many people who ride bicycles in the private sector. There are 21 million white people in the Netherlands, and more than 4 million people can ride bicycles. Nearly 20% of them are like those who have obtained motor vehicle driver's licenses. They are all the new force of Dutch bicycle transporters. In other countries, such as the United Kingdom, only the middle class has them. And don't forget that more than 5% of the 18 million Far Eastern natives and African blacks in the Netherlands can ride bicycles. This number alone is enough to beat most European countries. Prime Minister Lynden, Your Majesty, our Dutch army has been following your idea since 1865. We have conducted a 5-day actual combat test on soldiers riding bicycles in a competition to verify the value of bicycles and the cooperation of soldiers. In the end, it was found that all the equipment carried by the cyclists every day to run 60 kilometers in complex terrain proved that they have stronger mobility and excellent physical strength, and they can go into battle as soon as they get off the bicycle. On the contrary, ordinary soldiers take longer to reach their destination after carrying heavy loads and have no physical strength to enter the battle, so they can only be slaughtered by their opponents. William IV, it seems that many years of planting trees have finally borne fruit. When the First World War broke out in the previous life, the Allied governments rushed to expand the size of their bicycle corps. I heard that a 17-year-old young man named John Saul, a British cyclist, lied about his age to join the war. He was the first victim of Britain in this World War I. He was killed in a fire attack by the British Army in southern Chile while delivering information. Lyndon sighed and said, "Yes." William IV said sadly, "What a promising young man. Bury him with honor, comfort his family, and give him the treatment of a major and family allowance." Lyndon hesitated, and finally gritted his teeth and said, "Your Majesty, would this be inappropriate given his level?" William IV waved his hand and said irresistibly, "This is my order to give him treatment." He said to Lyndon, "Tell the Ministry of Education to prepare the elementary textbooks for next semester and include the deeds of this young man. I want to make him a classic example of a Dutch man who sacrificed his life for his country." Lyndon suddenly stopped objecting, his eyes lit up. "In this way, it is really worthy of your Majesty's reward." William IV nodded and asked with some concern, "How is Britain doing now?" Britain was losing rapidly in South America, and he didn't believe that those extremely arrogant people would be able to resist seeking revenge. Lyndon said with preparation, "Britain has begun to order a large number of bicycles in the country and has begun to collect our training methods, trying to learn from us to train their army to ride bicycles. The Clayton government has now ordered the collection of existing bicycles from the middle class and gentry in Britain." He said solemnly, "With Queen Victoria's intervention, the British Army has more than 50,000 bicycles in less than a week." William IV naturally predicted that this effect would be achieved after Queen Victoria's intervention. Lyndon said worriedly, "The British have trained a bicycle army, but it is currently useless in South America. I'm afraid they will use it in Southeast Asia." William IV nodded and said, "Then tell our people on Sumatra and Java to pay attention to safety protection. Also, strengthen our exchanges with the Malay Peninsula of the Kingdom of Siam, especially the coastal areas such as Singkla, Satun, Trang, Krabi, and Phuongya. Of course, the Phuket Island given to us by the Kingdom of Siam should be used together with the occupied Nicobar Islands to strengthen defenses against British raids." Lyndon, "Your Majesty, what about South America now?" William IV, "Don't worry about it for now. Don't forget that our Lieutenant General Castillo is still there. He has a comprehensive plan for the Six-Nation Coalition. He has already determined the headquarters of the Southern Coalition Army in Ecuador, and the occupied Puerto Montt in Chile." Lyndon was surprised and said, "In this way, one in the south and one in the north, the Netherlands' military position in South America is worry-free, but will Chilean President Arthur Lozon agree?" William IV said coldly, "He will agree April 5, 1879, Santiago, Chile, South America." The atmosphere in the presidential palace in the capital Santiago was very depressing. Chapter 737 Puerto Montt Joint Forces Base. 1879, the atmosphere in the presidential palace in Santiago, Chile, South America was very depressing. President Arturo Lozon looked at the letter in his hand, and his hands were shaking with anger. He threw the letter on the ground, and his face was extremely ugly. Next to him, the faces of the four people, including Minister of the Interior Siges, Minister of Defense Allende, Minister of Foreign Affairs Antonia, and Minister of the Army Mesip, were also extremely gloomy. In just a few days, South Chile was defeated. Under the attack of nearly 60,000 people from the Six-Nation Coalition, Netherlands, Venezuela, Colombia, Peru, Ecuador, and Bolivia, the 30,000 troops of Macasano in South Chile fled or were captured. At first, this made Arturo Lozon very excited, and he was very grateful for the help of the Six-Nation Coalition led by the Netherlands. Finally, the whole of Chile became a territory under his rule. But then, everything changed. He found a reality that he could not accept, that is, the Six-Nation Coalition actually occupied the city of Puerto Montt and would not leave. He had asked people to go there many times to talk to Castillo, the Secretary General of the Six Nations Coalition, about the handover, but in the end he found that Castillo, a military strongman that everyone in the world feared, did not respond to him this time, and directly led the remaining troops to be stationed there. Take over the defense work there. What worried him even more was that the Six Nations coalition actually built more artillery and other defense measures there according to the military camp. In addition to defending the coast and building new defenses in the direction of Argentina, these military facilities also defended the northern part of this side in disguise. Damn it, Arturo Lozan cursed. He didn't care why Castillo led the Six Nations coalition to occupy Puerto Montt. He only knew that if he didn't take action, then the rule of Puerto Montt would disappear. At the same time, His Majesty of ruling Chile would never allow anyone to provoke him. Castillo occupied Puerto Montt so recklessly, which was simply not taking him seriously. Have you contacted him? Arturo Lozan asked. We have made contact, but he still indifferently rejected our acceptance of Puerto Montt, said Defense Minister Allende. Arturo Lozan narrowed his eyes, emitting a cold gleam, and said to Foreign Minister Antonia next to him, have you contacted the Dutch Ministry of Foreign Affairs? Antonia spread his hands, looked at him helplessly, and said, Joseph Biden has not made a statement on this so far, but the Dutch Ministry of Foreign Affairs only stated that Castillo can fully represent the Kingdom of the Netherlands. Antonia. Arturo Lozan roared at him. Antonia smiled helplessly and said, Mr. President, it seems that the Netherlands has taken us in. Interior Minister Allende nodded and said to Arturo Lozan, who was still angry, Antonia is right, Mr. President, we may need to figure out what the Netherlands wants to do. No one mentioned the opinions of the other 5 countries, including Colombia, Venezuela, Peru, Bolivia, and Ecuador, because everyone understood that the Netherlands was the culprit that dominated their current predicament. In the end, Arturo Lozan could only nod helplessly. Afterwards, Foreign Minister Antonia and Interior Minister Allende stood up and left the hall. After the two walked out of the presidential palace, Antonia said somewhat dissatisfiedly, now the Netherlands has obviously ambitions for Puerto Montt and asked me to contact them. Since the day before yesterday, I have summoned Bequito, the Dutch ambassador to Santiago, for 2 consecutive days. He always replied in this way. What do you want me to do? This job is getting more and more difficult to do. Allende said unhappily, this is your job. The Ministry of Foreign Affairs is not responsible for diplomacy. You should improve relations with various countries. Then you, the foreign minister, should step down. Antonia rolled her eyes at him, don't pretend not to understand. You know that what I want to say is the Netherlands' unyielding position. Allende sighed, there is no way. Who told us to be weak? You said, when we become stronger in the future, can we learn from Argentina? Antonia suddenly asked. Allende shook his head, it's difficult. The problem of Puerto Montt now is what you just said. Antonia was stunned at first, and then smiled bitterly. Inside the presidential palace, Arturo Lozan looked at the backs of the 2 people, his face turning pale and blue. These 2 useless bastards. He gritted his teeth and said. The hoarse voice echoed in the empty hall. At this time, the Minister of the Army, Mesip, who had been standing next to him, said with a flickering look, Mr. President, I think the most important thing is to strengthen your image among the people in the South first, otherwise, everything else will be in vain. Australia, Melbourne. William IV sat in a Chinese-style lakeside pavilion, with 2 intelligence in his hands. They were the latest intelligence from South America and Europe. The intelligence from South America was sent by Mackay Sean, director of the Netherlands International Intelligence Agency, and the intelligence from Europe was naturally sent back by Bill Charlie, director of the Netherlands Royal Intelligence Agency in the mainland. The intelligence sent back by Mackay Sean was mainly about the development of the situation in Chile and Argentina. He found that there were more and more pro-British people in Argentina, and as usual, most of them seemed to be along the Atlantic coast. The intelligence sent back by Bill Charlie was about Europe. Britain was inciting the northern and southern forces of France to support Britain in suppressing the rise of the Netherlands, and it was also frequently flirting with the German Empire, which was obviously ill-intentioned. It seems that Britain is aiming to form gangs and factions, and is not ready to work alone with the Netherlands. However, if Germany and France were to join the British camp, it would pose a huge threat to the Netherlands. William IV had a headache when he thought of the ambitious Bismarck and Napoleon III. All countries knew that in Europe, Germany, which had unified the German Confederation and had eased relations with the Austro-Hungarian Empire, could definitely rival the British. After all, with the rise of the Netherlands, Britain's position as the sole maritime hegemon was already in jeopardy. But if the 2 great powers of Germany and France could be won over, then Britain might really be able to suppress the Netherlands. According to Bill Charlie's investigation, he found that the German Empire had been deploying troops recently. Although there were slight changes, they accumulated little by little. He believed that after 8 years of recuperation, Bismarck was ready to take action again. Now the German Empire has already caught up with the Netherlands and the United Kingdom in terms of national nucleic acid GDP, currently ranking third, ahead of the United States. In terms of military, the German Empire ranked only after the United Kingdom in terms of comprehensive strength, and ranked third with the Russian Empire, and the Netherlands and the Austro-Hungarian Empire tied for fifth. Chapter 738 Military Intelligence Department. Melbourne, Australia. Bismarck is now 65 years old, which is the best age for a senior politician. He has chosen to keep a low profile in the past 8 years, rarely going out, leaving Berlin or the German Empire. Since last year, he has not only frequently flirted with the British, but even met with Archduke Rainer Ferdinand, the Prime Minister of the Austro-Hungarian Empire, every 6 months, showing his affection to the outside world. William IV immediately understood what this old fox was planning again. There is always no gain without early action. According to Bill Charlie's intelligence, the German Empire is currently trying to win over Alexander II. William IV took a deep breath. At present, the country with the most balanced relations with various countries in the world must be the German Empire. Under Bismarck's horizontal and vertical alliances, the surrounding powers such as Britain, France, Russia, Austria, and Sweden are all under Bismarck's manipulation, and their relations are in the operation of strategic balance. William IV smiled bitterly and said secretly, the status of the Netherlands 10 years ago, with the rise of the Netherlands in the Far East Indian Ocean and the Pacific Ocean, the collision between Britain and the Netherlands gave Bismarck an opportunity to replace the Netherlands as a great power that all countries were vying to make friends with. On the contrary, the Netherlands became a local vassal, but there was nothing that could be done. In modern history, there was no truly peaceful rise of a regional power, especially from ancient times to the second half of the 19th century, all of which relied on military force to win. In 1851, Bismarck, at the age of 36, served as the representative of the Kingdom of Prussia to the German Confederation Parliament in Frankfurt, and was promoted to ambassador soon after. He served in this position for 8 years, which laid the foundation for his understanding of the national conditions of many countries in the entire German Confederation, including the Austrian Empire, and laid the groundwork for him to lead Prussia to unify the German Confederation and dominate. In 1857, King Frederick William IV of Prussia became mentally ill, so his brother Prince William, now William I, became regent. Soon after, he encouraged Prince William to surrender and appointed Bismarck as ambassador to the Russian Empire. In 1861, Prince William ascended the throne and became William I, appointing Bismarck as interior minister, but Bismarck was unwilling to be the interior minister, so he refused and did not fulfill it. In early 1862, Bismarck returned to Berlin from St. Petersburg. William I still could not appoint him as foreign prime minister, so he resigned directly. However, he finally became ambassador to France under persuasion. In the same year, under Bismarck's operation, the Liberals won the new round of elections in the Prussian parliament, and immediately vetoed all the funding for military reforms by the Prussian government. The government and parliamentary elections were deadlocked. Under major contradictions, Bismarck directly stood up to support the government and became the only elected prime minister after then prime minister resigned. On September 23, 1862, William I recalled Bismarck, who was serving as ambassador in Paris, and appointed him as prime minister and foreign minister of Prussia. The first thing Bismarck did when he came to power was to dissolve the parliament that hindered military reform, which shocked the whole of Europe, but also put Prussia's military iron-bloodedness on the fast track. No one knows how many means Bismarck used to get himself to that position. After all, he was not the person involved. It has to be said that this old guy is really amazing. In the past, the real foundation of the Kingdom of Prussia led by Bismarck was the Army of Prussia's military reform. However, as Prussia became a thing of the past, the German Empire, which had expanded more than twice its area, had population, economic size, talent reserves, etc. After the faster development of the past 8 or 9 years, the German Empire has fully possessed the strength to compete with Britain. In this way, the German Empire has the strength of European hegemony in terms of economy, military, population, and area, and is now officially expanding its influence outside Europe. Is the current movement of the German Empire in South America the next direction of Bismarck? William IV was not sure. After all, Bismarck, the old guy, would not be easily seen through. Just like when he pushed the Austrian Empire and the entire German Confederation to attack Denmark, the reputation and strength of several old rivals of the Austrian Empire, the Kingdom of Hanover, the Kingdom of Bavaria and the Kingdom of Prussia in the German Confederation were reduced. Finally, he took advantage of their weakness to deal with them, kicked out the Austrian Empire and agreed to the rest of the territory of the entire German Confederation. William IV was familiar with the future development trend, but with the rise of the Netherlands, the world situation had already undergone a partial butterfly effect. He naturally would not think that Bismarck and others would not adapt to the situation and change Germany's development strategy. This is also one of the reasons why he promoted the Netherlands to migrate to the Far East, a wasteland in Europe. After all, in this way, the power of the Netherlands in Europe was compressed, allowing the balance of power in Europe to return to its original track. This will not change too much of the development direction of Europe that he is familiar with. Bismarck is unfathomable, and this old fox must be guarded against. In particular, intelligence showed that the German Empire was currently conducting some secret agreements with the Austro-Hungarian Empire, and was even purchasing more steel from Sweden. After reading Bill Charlie's intelligence, William IV smiled helplessly. He knew that the German Empire had hidden a lot of strength, but he never expected that it had hidden so much. Your Majesty, Major General Wright of MI8 wants to see you. Just when William IV was distressed, his guard leader Yaruto suddenly came to report. William IV narrowed his eyes and asked, "What's the matter?" He came to see him at this time? "I heard from Major General Wright that it's about North America," Yaruto said. North America? America or Mexico? William IV was confused, but still said, "Bring him in." MI8 also became the Dutch Secret Intelligence Service. It was the Netherlands' external intelligence agency. It was the first secret intelligence agency founded by William IV on January 1, 1858, before the Dutch Royal Intelligence Service and the Dutch International Intelligence Service. However, unlike the two subsequent Dutch Royal Intelligence Service and the Dutch International Intelligence Service, this agency was responsible for collecting intelligence from all over the world for him from the beginning, mainly including internal anti-terrorism in the Netherlands, global weapons development and operation, unrest around the world, and the development of the Netherlands' secret placement of spies in governments around the world. It has always been working in extreme confidentiality, not supervised by the Dutch cabinet government, and its name is not on the list of government departments because it only serves William IV. A moment later, a middle-aged immigrant wearing a Dutch military uniform but with the rank of Major General came to William IV. MI8's Right greets Your Majesty. William IV just stared at him and asked, "MI8 has nothing important to do, so you should not show up casually. Have you forgotten?" "Your Majesty, I know, but MI8 is currently facing a big problem," Wright said with a very serious face holding a document. William IV opened the document and was stunned after just one look. It said, on January 13, 1879, 6 MI8 agents were secretly assassinated while collecting intelligence in northern England. After 2 months of investigation, it was learned that the assassins were two groups of members of the British Army Intelligence Bureau 6. "I've been a little busy these 2 days, so I haven't updated much. I'll make up for it tomorrow and update 5 chapters. Chapter 739 British MI6. Inside the Royal Palace of the Netherlands. MI8 lost 6 members at once. William IV was distressed and his eyes were full of anger. Since he founded MI8 on January 1, 1858, this department has been the most powerful sword in his hand. Including his secret moves in various countries, all were completed with the help of this organization. It can be said that this is the intelligence organization he values most. In 1859, the Belgian Intelligence Bureau attacked 3 members of MI8 who were on a mission in Brussels. Finally, in 1860, under the angry condemnation of the Dutch government, the Belgian Intelligence Bureau was closed, ending the dispute between the two countries. In December 1861, in order to solve the increasingly frequent activities of Britain in the Netherlands, MI8 was reformed according to the advice of William IV, who had just ascended the throne as King of the Netherlands, and a part of the people were separated to openly establish the Netherlands International Intelligence Bureau and the Netherlands Royal Intelligence Bureau. Thus, the model of the Dutch intelligence organization being divided into 2 open and 1 dark was born. With the establishment of the latter two organizations, Wright, Bill Charlie, and Mike Shawn became the three giants of the Dutch intelligence community. At this point, MI8 officially became the Dutch Secret Intelligence Service. In 1862, after the Dutch intelligence agency was reorganized, the name MI8 was used all the time. MI8 was therefore the main spy intelligence agency in the Netherlands. Its main personnel were responsible for collecting political, economic and military intelligence at home and abroad, engaging in spy intelligence and foreign counter-espionage activities. The most mysterious spy lists in his safe were the organization's greatest achievements. In 1865, MI8 set up a project specializing in sabotage and subversion of other countries' regimes, and William IV directly called it D Division. In 1871, MI8 was reorganized and established as Group 4 with D Division as the core. It was mainly responsible for foreign intelligence and espionage activities, such as infiltrating political organizations of other countries to conduct subversion and recruitment. The headquarters of MI8 moved from Rotterdam, the Netherlands, Europe, to a 20-story building in Canberra, the second largest city in New South Wales, Australia. It was announced to the outside world as a villa of the Dutch royal family and was controlled by William IV. Over the years, MI8 has rarely encountered any problems. This time, 6 people were caught at once. Each of them is a valuable resource for MI8. This revenge must be avenged. William IV looked at Wright and asked in an unquestionable tone, "Have you found out the situation of British MI6? Wright nodded and said, "It was Crown Prince Edward." William IV. Wright, Queen Victoria handed over MI6 to Crown Prince Edward. William IV was stunned after hearing this. After a long time, he said, "Is Queen Victoria okay?" If he remembered correctly, Queen Victoria lived until 1901. Now it is only 1879, which means she can live for another 22 years. At this time, she handed over the British intelligence to Crown Prince Edward? William IV asked with some doubt. "The Queen is fine," said Wright. William IV let out a long breath, feeling very complicated. Queen Victoria handed MI6 to Prince Edward. This seemed to be different from history. He remembered that the relationship between the mother and son in his previous life was very bad. He even took over diplomatic affairs from the Queen in the 1990s when the Queen's body gradually became exhausted. Prince Edward took advantage of the opportunity when Bismarck was dismissed by William IV, who had just been in power for a year or two, in 1890, and tried to win over various countries in Europe and suppress the German Empire with all his strength. After achieving results, Queen Victoria finally transferred power to him in the last few years, and took back the power of other princes such as Prince Alfred, the second heir to the throne, and Prince Arthur, the third heir, and even drove them out of the British mainland. Prince Arthur became the Governor-General of Canada. The second son, Prince Alfred, became the Duke of Saxe-Coburg-Gotha. Queen Victoria actually handed over MI6 to him in advance at this time, which he never expected. MI8 was Queen Victoria's eyes and ears, and its importance was self-evident, but it was given to him so easily. In this way, Prince Edward was sure to inherit the British throne. However, William IV always felt that something was wrong, but he couldn't put his finger on it. It seems that it has become more difficult for Prince Alfred to ascend to the throne. It seems that Her Majesty the Queen of England really recognizes this eldest son this time, William IV thought in a complicated way. His impression of Queen Victoria almost all came from the intelligence he collected, but in the historical memory of his previous life, this one of the greatest kings of Britain was all majestic, domineering, and strong, with almost no tenderness of a weak woman. Especially in the more than 60 years when he was queen, Britain's colonies increased more than tenfold. Such a woman who is even more powerful than Wu Zetian, he didn't think she would choose to hand over power so soon. Suddenly, William IV wanted to meet the Queen of England, whom he hadn't seen since attending the wedding in Greece. Even if it was just to meet again. Although he didn't think that the other party would interfere in the suppression of Prince Edward, William IV wanted to take the opportunity to find out whether Britain was preparing for a smooth transition of power in advance. "Tell me about the situation of MI6, he asked softly. Wright stood in front of him respectfully and said, "MI6 was established on the basis of our MI8 structure. Their first task is to create human resources, that is, to gather agents, conduct direct surveillance, intercept communications or intelligence, conduct intrusive surveillance, or spread false information." William IV nodded. Agents are social human resources that can provide secret intelligence reports on the target of investigation. They are not members of MI6, but the most important source of secret intelligence. Agent operations are carried out by specially trained officers and can last for a long time, sometimes for many years, such as Argentina, or Jules Darnaton, the leader of the Liberal Party, who became the Prime Minister of Belgium and is now the Deputy Prime Minister of the Netherlands. As for direct surveillance, it is easier to understand, that is, tracking and observing the target. This work is carried out by professional surveillance with advanced skills. They monitor through vehicles, on foot, or the popular telegraph, telephone and other signals. The supervisory department of MI8 in the Netherlands often cooperates closely with several major telegraph and telephone companies in the Netherlands. Communications interception is the same as telegram and phone interception, but this can only be carried out after the king's approval. As for invasive surveillance, it is point-to-point tracking of a person or a target for monitoring. William IV asked, what is the current total size of the British MI6? Chapter 740 Triple Agent. What we already know is that MI6 is divided into three parts. One part focuses on the mainland, another part is the colonies, and the third part is various countries. The first and second parts are self-governed, so they are convenient and have the most human resources. The latter was improved after seeing our MI8, and is currently smaller in scale, Wright said after a pause. William IV asked somewhat displeasedly, didn't you send people to infiltrate the British intelligence organization? Right, at present, several of our people have entered, but they are all marginal people, in the middle and lower levels. William IV asked, besides Britain, what about the intelligence organizations of other countries? We have already infiltrated the senior internal departments of the Federal Bureau of Investigation National Security Office, the Coast Guard, the U.S. Department of Energy Intelligence, and the U.S. Financial Intelligence Office of the Federal Republic of the United States. The Russian Empire Security Office is the easiest, and the sale of intelligence there is very serious. The Directorate General for External Security of the Second French Empire is currently in dispute with the Third French Republic in the south, allowing various countries to infiltrate their internal intelligence circles, and we have also made a lot of moves. Delate said this, and he said solemnly, the most difficult one is the Intelligence Bureau of the German Empire. This organization currently has spies stationed in Europe and America to collect intelligence, which can be used as an opportunity for the current external expansion of the German Empire. William IV looked at him without comment. How to expand? Right. The main way the German Imperial Intelligence Agency currently sends spies is to collect intelligence data as embassy staff. The department currently has more than 1,000 employees worldwide, especially in America and Europe. Wright explained, the German Empire is located in Central Europe, and the surrounding ethnic groups can be spread out and developed into intelligence downline personnel, so it is natural that it can be easily spread out. In the Americas, especially in the United States, there are more than 4 million Germans in the United States, accounting for 1/6 of the population, so intelligence gathering is most convenient. Of course, it is both a strength and a weakness. Conversely, this is also the convenience that countries can most easily recruit intelligence personnel within the German Empire. William IV looked at him with appreciation. Wright said, we took action more than 10 years ago, and we have ranged people at the middle and high levels of the intelligence agency. William IV's eyes lit up slightly. He didn't expect that he had already infiltrated the intelligence agency. Are our people in charge? Currently our people in the German Imperial Intelligence Agency are mainly responsible for intelligence collection in South America. There is a director named Eisen, and 3 other middle-level managers are responsible for intelligence in individual countries such as Britain, Sweden, and Denmark. William IV really didn't expect that he would get to this point, one at the continent level, and the other 3 national middle-level managers of intelligence. Such a large-scale infiltration is worthy of his most optimistic view of the Dutch military intelligence aid, which is incomparable to the other 2 major organizations in the Netherlands. Wright may have seen William IV's unusual movements, and he continued, in fact, strictly speaking, we were able to get these people promoted to those positions because we got the opportunity after the Kingdom of Prussia unified the German Confederation, because they were our military intelligence intelligence informants in the various principalities of the German Confederation. After the unification of the Kingdom of Prussia, in order to quickly quell the dissatisfaction of various countries within the country, We transplanted all the intelligence resources of various countries to the new German Empire Intelligence Bureau regardless of the big cats and small cats. After years of hard work, our people have become the middle and high-level positions of the German Empire's intelligence. William Iv's face trembled slightly. This is really a big joke. The heads of the German Empire's South American and British intelligence are actually informants of the Kingdom of the Netherlands. If this matter is revealed, no one will dare to believe it. Especially Eisen. It is said that the various judgments and intelligence made by the German Empire now come from Eisen, who is currently in South America. In other words, if Eisen follows the intelligence given by the Netherlands and leads the German Empire into a trap, it will be absolutely easy. William Iv stared at Wright. The German Empire is currently taking action in Paraguay and Uruguay, which makes people very suspicious of the ambitions of Bismarck and others. Keep an eye on this place. In the future, it may be the biggest help for us to change South America. Bismarck made frequent moves in South America, but he didn't know that their intelligence had all gone to the Netherlands. What does this show? It shows that MI8 has become a global intelligence agency. Thinking about the American counterparts in later generations that made countries around the world fearful, at this moment, William Iv's confidence was unprecedentedly strong. Restraining his excitement, he said to Wright, "First, hide all our people in the UK. Instead, let the German Empire's spies in the UK serve us to collect intelligence, and even reveal the existence of the German Empire's intelligence from time to time to divert Britain's excessive attention from us." Wright's eyes lit up when he heard this. This is a good idea. At this time, the chief guard Gerudo reported that Cantor, the director of the Dutch National Security Council and the coordinator of Atlantic Affairs, had arrived. William Iv glanced at Wright, who saluted and left. Maybe Bismarck just wants to get something else, and it seems that he has already got what he wanted. The West respects the right, Cantor said as he sat to the right of William Iv. William Iv's eyes lit up and he looked at Cantor. With such a big man in the royal think tank in front of him, why waste his brain cells? As the director of the Netherlands National Security Council and coordinator of Atlantic Affairs, Cantor's status is similar to that of the American Presidential Security Deputy National Security Advisor. He helps William Iv coordinate and advise on various international political and security issues. The reason why William Iv has become more and more relaxed in recent years is that he has established a stable think tank team, and Cantor has been working hard for 20 years. Of course, the fact that William Iv is reluctant to replace him also proves that Cantor's ability is recognized by William Iv. Mr. Cantor, what do you think Bismarck's purpose is? Kant suddenly pondered for a moment and said, "The specific purpose is unknown, but I always feel that Bismarck should want some special interests, an interest that the German Empire will not let go easily. Your Majesty once said that Bismarck seems to be planning South America. It is very likely that the German Empire is currently focusing on helping Paraguay and trying to create its own ally in South America. Even so, I am still a little dull and don't understand. Please forgive me, Your Majesty." William Iv rolled his eyes and smiled. Mr. Cantor, don't be humble anymore. If even you are dull, then aren't the other 99% of people fools? Chapter 741, Forcing Chile to Submit. It was normal that Cantor could not make an analysis. If he could still make an analysis in the absence of major intelligence, he would not be a counselor or think tank, but a fortune teller or astrologer. However, there was one thing Cantor said that William Iv did not expect, that is, Bismarck's previous operation. The German Empire participated in the South American situation game, flirting with Paraguay and Uruguay. Was it really just to find allies in South America to gain a foothold? From the beginning, there was something wrong with the German Empire's participation. Looking back now, William Iv felt that Bismarck might have other ideas. After all, South America is too far away from Berlin, and Germany only robbed France of Guyana in South America. Even if there was an additional ally, Paraguay, the benefits Germany gained did not seem to be very rich. What exactly was Bismarck going to do? Was there any other idea? Thinking in this way, the whole thing became connected. Cantor said, Bismarck wanted to expand his territory, and the barren territory in Africa would definitely not suit his wishes. In Asia, the far eastern powers of Britain, France and the Netherlands, the Ottoman Empire, and the Russian Empire were guarding against them like wolves. Bismarck obviously knew this, so he had no way to start. In the end, he could only go to America, but North America was either the powerful United States of America, Canada at Britain, or the Confederate States of America protected by Britain. At present, it seems that the United States of America is Bismarck's ally in the election, and Stephen Douglas also agrees with this. If Bismarck wants to gain a foothold in North America, he can only rely on the American government, but this practice of relying on other countries will definitely not last long. He said sarcastically, and they want something, but they can't ask for it openly, and neither the United States of America nor Britain will hand it over easily. So the Germany represented by Bismarck is ready to take advantage of the Netherlands and Britain's competition in South America to directly enter the game and use this as an excuse to march into South America. When the situation between Britain and the Netherlands changes from turbid to clear, the German Empire will have already made a fait accompli, and Britain and the Netherlands will have to accept this fact. William IV nodded. After thinking about it clearly, he whispered, "Yes, by then, ceding land and paying compensation will be just a bonus." I am now more and more curious about Bismarck's plan. However, Cantor said, "Your Majesty's top priority is to find a way to keep the strategic location of Puerto Montt in Chile." William IV's expression was slightly stiff, and he almost forgot about it. At present, the Chilean Civil War has ended. The Six-Nation Coalition led by the Netherlands has helped northern Chile occupy southern Chile, including the new southern capital of Puerto Montt and the Strait of Magellan. The strategic position of these two places is very important and plays a key role in the Netherlands' position in the Pacific. At present, Puerto Montt is the southern headquarters of the Six-Nation Coalition. According to the plan he made, Puerto Montt will become the garrison of the Six-Nation Coalition in the future. This is just a cover, because the Netherlands is the leader, which means that Puerto Montt will be under the jurisdiction of the coalition led by the Netherlands in the future. However, if the Netherlands emphasizes its position in Puerto Montt too much, it will be worried by other countries in South America, and it will not be worth the loss in the end. As an ally, the Netherlands has no reason to occupy the second largest city in Chile. This will trigger a chain reaction. What if other South American allies have opinions about the Netherlands at that time? Mr. Cantor, do you have any good ideas? William IV asked. Since Cantor made such a statement, he should have his own ideas. This person became the captain of William IV's think tank team because of some ghosts. Your Majesty, can you recommend Lieutenant General Castillo to continue to serve as the Secretary General of the Six-Nation Coalition? William IV frowned and said, but Castillo has been in office for several years. If he continues to serve as the Secretary General, will it cause dissatisfaction among the other 5 countries? Cantor shook his head. Your Majesty, you are too confused. The reason why the Six-Nation Coalition was successfully formed is mainly due to the role of the Netherlands. If it is replaced by Ecuador or other international military personnel to take the lead, not to mention whether the Netherlands will listen or not, other countries will be suspicious. Ecuador will doubt Colombia, Peru will doubt Bolivia, and Venezuela will not trust Colombia very much either. As long as Your Majesty agrees to see it, any rules can be broken, Cantor said. And Your Majesty, don't forget that in this world, the strong will eventually be respected, and the weak can only obey orders. William IV could not refute it. Even in the 20th century, it was the same. Your Majesty, you want to send the fleet directly over there. Cantor's words made William IV even more interested. The Chileans are unwilling to hand over Puerto Montt, not to mention that if the Netherlands sends its fleet over there, will Chilean President Arturo Lozon lose sleep? Cantor continued, currently, the Chilean Navy has only a few simple small ships of dozens of tons. Any European coastal country that sends a small fleet there will be enough to wipe out the Chilean Navy. Cantor showed a sinister smile and said, Your Majesty can directly send the Siamese Navy or the Danish Navy to visit there. With the endless stream of naval visits, I think President Lozon should know that if his seaport does not have the protection of the Dutch Navy, then sooner or later it will be meat on the sticky board of others, and they can eat it at will. Benefits are attractive. Chile's territory is still fertile, especially soybean production is at the forefront of the world, which is a more delicious fat meat for many countries. With the precedent of the Netherlands, the whole of Europe knows that South America has become a fat piece of meat. Which power does not want to have a piece of the pie? It's just that the Netherlands and Britain were at peace before, and the United States was unable to extricate itself from the Civil War and could not take care of South America, so the United Kingdom, the Netherlands and Brazil and Portugal, had the final say. Although they were jealous, they could do nothing about it. But if the Netherlands suddenly gave up, Not to mention the Britain that had just been driven away. Even the German and French countries that were now ready to fight in Uruguay and Paraguay would make the situation in Chile even more turbulent, and Lausanne would be called the object of meat. William Ivey understood that Cantor wanted him to put some external pressure on Arturo Lausanne. Just the navies of these countries are not enough, William Ivey said in a deep voice. Since we are going to do it, we have to do it on a big scale. I want to scare Arturo Lausanne half to death and make him beg us to sign the stationing treaty. Cantor smiled and said, Your Majesty is right. I also think that we should make the whole plan more natural. So, the plan will be postponed for a while. After all, forcing them to surrender and let us station troops there is far less favorable than having them beg us to station troops there. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelis. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 742 Garrison Agreement. Time passed quickly. In the blink of an eye, it was April 10, 1879, half a month after South Chile was conquered by North Chile and the six-power Allied forces. William Ivey was strategizing in Melbourne and issuing various instructions to the outside world. In the past 10 days, Europe and the world have undergone many changes. First, the Kingdom of Siam in northern Southeast Asia had several minor gun battles with the South Vietnamese colonial army of the Second French Empire on both sides of the Mekong River in Cambodia, and both sides suffered losses. Especially in Phnom Penh, which was held by the Kingdom of Siam, because along the Mekong River, the navy of the French Empire often made dangerous fake artillery demonstrations against Phnom Penh, and the Kingdom of Siam fired artillery at these warships not far away from the artillery. The two sides came and went, and from time to time, the fake play became real, making the entire Mekong River unstable. According to the leaked data statistics of both sides, France and the Kingdom of Siam currently have 70,000 and 110,000 troops deployed along the Mekong River respectively, and it can be said that there will be accidental firing at any time. This matter has spread all over the world, and all countries have taken it seriously. The Kingdom of the Netherlands and the United Kingdom have stood up and joined the dispute, but the Netherlands obviously stood on the side of the Kingdom of Siam, while the United Kingdom supported France. Even, Britain watched more than 100,000 troops on the Burmese side of the western part of the Kingdom of Siam, which put the entire western part of the Kingdom of Siam in crisis. The surrounding Far Eastern powers, Spain, which occupied the Philippines as a colony, and the Tsarist Russian Empire, which owned East Mandan, which had exchanged Alaska with the Netherlands, all stood up and asked the four countries to stop the dispute and conduct peace talks. Although the major forces and countries did not sell, if they continue to expand in accordance with a dangerous situation in Southeast Asia, the major forces will inevitably be implicated. After all, they are all sandwiched between these countries. Secondly, the situation in South America is getting more and more intense. Chile and Argentina are actually arguing on the border. Argentina believes that the Strait of Magellan should belong to Argentina, at least the eastern part belongs to Argentina, but it was Britain that forcibly snatched it from Argentina. Chile will naturally not admit it. However, what embarrassed Chile was that its former ally Britain actually stood up to express support for Argentina's position. Moreover, Britain kept saying that Chile was wrong, so Britain joined the diplomatic war of words between Chile and Argentina. Obviously, everyone knew that Britain was trying to use Argentina to balance the influence of the Netherlands in South America. Britain accepted Argentina's request without any hesitation and directly joined the diplomatic war, increasing the intensity of its attack on Chile's diplomacy. Although Chile was not afraid of diplomatic war, it had to face the troops from Argentina on the border between the two countries. Especially Argentina actually increased its troops by 10,000 on April 7, 1979 on the basis of the original 30,000 troops in Mendoza, close to the capital of Chile. Obviously, this was a direct threat to the capital of Chile. In the south, San Carlos, an Argentine city next to Puerto Montt, because Puerto Montt was stationed with 60,000 Dutch-led Six-Nation coalition forces, it also increased its troops from the original 20,000 troops to an equal 60,000 Argentine troops. At the same time, President Mitre also increased the garrison of Salta, a city on the north of the border, by 10,000. Anyway, after a wave, Argentina actually increased its troops on the side of Argentina close to Chile by more than 90,000, plus the original 110,000. This made the whole of Chile feel cloudy. Chile, Santiago, Presidential Palace. You should know that the total number of Chilean troops in the north and south was only 100,000 before. Now after the battle, 30,000 in the south died, fled, and dispersed. The 70,000 Chileans in the north are now only 60,000. This is because the casualties have been reduced with the help of the Six-Nation Coalition. Otherwise, maybe half of the 70,000 troops can be left. Now if Argentina is not worried about the 60,000 troops of the Six-Nation Coalition led by the Netherlands, it is conceivable that with the 110,000 Argentine troops marching straight in, it is unknown whether Chile will still exist. Foreign Minister Antonio worried. However, this time, Defense Minister Allende said, although Argentina is stronger than us, it still dares not act rashly in front of the Six-Nation Coalition in Puerto Montt in the south. He looked up at President Arturo Lozán and reminded him meaningfully, as long as the Netherlands supports Chile, then even if Argentina has more troops, they will not dare to step into Chilean territory because of the counterattack of the Netherlands. After he finished speaking, Arturo Lozán, who was sitting at the top, turned pale. Allende's words can be said to be a great shame. As the highest figure in a country, he actually relied on the protection of other countries to keep the country alive. It can be said that this is the thing that every president is most reluctant to face. But now this shame has fallen on him. Your Majesty, accept the reality. Argentina is much stronger than me. When we were on good terms with the Netherlands, we bought a lot of arms from the Netherlands. Now it is more difficult to deal with than Brazil. And its economic strength is also among the top 10 in the world. In addition, now it is relying on Britain, which can be said to be the biggest threat to us. For the sake of the country, it is time for us to humble ourselves and accept their help. Interior Minister Sitges said slowly, but his slowness was like someone slowly cutting his flesh with a knife, maximizing the pain. This guy has always been inseparable from Antonia. It seems that he is still aware of the current situation as before. Another way to put it is that he has become more cowardly for personal gain. Thinking of this, he couldn't help but look at his supporter, the Minister of War, Messip, with hope. Messip secretly shook his head at him. Seeing this, Arturo Lozán knew that he was powerless. When William received the news of Arturo Lozán's compromise from South America, he finally smiled with success. He said to Cantor, who had just been recruited, "It seems that it is the most fulfilling when you make people surrender." Cantor smiled, and then said, "There is no way. Who told us that the strength of the Netherlands is there?" On April 20, 1879, Lieutenant General Castillo, Secretary General of the Six-Nation Alliance of South America and Deputy Minister of the King of the Netherlands, signed 3 agreements with Arturo Lozán in Santiago on behalf of the organization. 5 hours after Chile and the Six-Nation Coalition consisting of the Netherlands, Colombia, Ecuador, Peru, Bolivia and Venezuela signed the Six-Nation Coalition Support Agreement for Chile, Chilean President Arturo Lozán and Dutch Prime Minister Linden signed a new treaty. The official name is Security and Guarantee Treaty between the Federal State of Chile and the Kingdom of the Netherlands. The treaty consists of a preamble and 56 articles. The key points are, the Netherlands has the right to station land, sea and air forces in and around Chile, and the Dutch army can suppress riots in Chile at the request of the Chilean government. The conditions for the Dutch stationing are separately stipulated by the administrative agreement between the two countries. Chapter 743 Chile-Netherlands Security Treaty 1879, the Netherlands and Chile signed the Chile-Holland Administrative Regulations in Santiago in accordance with the Chile-Holland Security and Protection Treaty, which detailed the status and privileges of the Dutch troops stationed in Chile, such as Chile providing military bases and facilities to the Netherlands, the right of the Netherlands to use, manage and defend these bases and facilities, Chile having no right to judge Dutch soldiers and their families for crimes, and Chile paying the Dutch army £100,000, or 1% of the country's GDP, in defense expenses every year. As the signing of these treaties came to light, the whole world looked at Chile and the Netherlands. Everyone understood that the signing of these treaties meant that the Netherlands had successfully entered the southeast of South America. South America was entering an era in which the Netherlands joined militarization. As the main promoter, William IV was interviewed in Melbourne by the world's most influential newspaper, the European Times. Reporter: Your Majesty, what is the name of this treaty between the Netherlands and Chile? William IV. Yes, the full name is the Treaty of Mutual Cooperation and Security between Chile and the Kingdom of the Netherlands. Reporter Owen. The signatories are Chilean President Arturo Lozon and Dutch Prime Minister Jan van Linden. Why not, Your Majesty? William IV. Because it is a matter between governments, it is naturally most appropriate for the heads of government to restrain it. Reporter Owen. Why sign this treaty? William IV. Chile and the Kingdom of the Netherlands both hope to strengthen the traditional friendship between the two countries, and support the many principles of democracy proposed by the Netherlands, the individual, the rule of law, and further promote close economic cooperation between the Netherlands and Chile, economic stability and improvement of welfare. The two countries once again reaffirm their compliance and approval of the belief in the legal rules of the International Court of Justice in The Hague. The two countries confirm their right to individual or joint defense under international rules. In order to maintain peace and security in South America and the Pacific region, the two countries decided to conclude this treaty. Reporter Owen. Your Majesty, can you tell us more about this treaty? William IV. Of course, this treaty has a total of 8 articles. The first is an effort to maintain peace. Reporter Owen. William IV. The contracting party shall abide by the provisions of the Charter of the International Court of Justice in The Hague and maintain international peace, security and justice by resolving their respective international disputes by peaceful means. Even in order to maintain territorial integrity and political independence, the use of force and other methods inconsistent with the principles of the International Court of Justice in The Hague should be used with caution. The contracting parties and other peace-loving countries, in order to make the purpose of the International Court of Justice in The Hague to maintain international peace and security more effectively implemented, strive to strengthen the development of the organization with like-minded member states. Owen. The second article is William IV. The second article is the promotion of economic cooperation. The purpose of this article is that the contracting parties contribute to the further development of peaceful and friendly international relations by strengthening the Dutch free system, promoting the principles of these systems, improving stability and welfare conditions, and the contracting parties strive to eliminate differences between each other and promote economic cooperation between the two countries. William IV followed. The third article is the maintenance and development of self-defense forces. The contracting parties shall cooperate individually and with each other, maintain effective self-help and mutual assistance, and develop and maintain their respective capabilities to resist attack on the basis of the Constitution. Reporter Owen. The first 3 articles are full of content. I am looking forward to the 4th article. William IV. Article 4 stipulates agreement at any time. Reporter Owen. Agreement at any time. William IV. The contracting parties shall agree at any time on the implementation of this treaty. In addition, when the security of Chile and the international security of South America are threatened, the agreement shall be made at any time at the request of any party to the contracting party. Reporter Owen. Oh my God, this means that if Chile asks the Netherlands for support, the Netherlands must help. William IV. That's right. Reporter Owen. But in this case, the Netherlands will be in a situation where it is possible to join the war at any time. William IV. Haha, please look at the text. It shows that this is the prerequisite when threatened. Reporter Owen. I was shocked. There is really such a condition. That's not bad, but Article 5 is very interesting. William IV. Article 5 Joint visits. Reporter Owen. No way, joint defense is mentioned. I feel a little scared when I hear it. William IV. The various allied parties declare that in the areas implemented by Chile, if any party is attacked by force, they will take action to deal with the common threat in accordance with the provisions and procedures of their own constitutions. Note, the use of force and the measures taken as a result must be reported to the International Court of Justice in The Hague immediately in accordance with the provisions of the organization's charter. These measures must be stopped if more than 2/3 of the member states of the organization request to stop. Reporter Owen. If it comes, it's not bad, at least it acts as a brake. I am very interested in Article 6 now. William IV. Article 6 Permission for bases. In order to contribute to the security of Chile and the maintenance of international peace and security in South America, the Dutch Navy, Army and Air Force are allowed to use facilities and areas in Chile. Note, the establishment of Chile, the region and the status of the Dutch Army stationed in Chile are in accordance with the administrative agreement, individual agreements and other agreements based on the Chile-Netherlands Security Treaty signed in Santiago. Reporter Owen. In this way, Chile is almost a country protected by the Netherlands. William IV. But in this way, Chile saves military expenses. Wouldn't it be better to use these financial resources to develop Chile's economy? William IV, Article 7, the relationship with the Declaration of the International Court of Justice in The Hague. This treaty shall not be understood as affecting the rights and obligations of the contracting parties stipulated in the Declaration of the International Court of Justice in The Hague, and the responsibility for maintaining international peace and security. Reporter Owen. William IV, Article 8 Ratification. This treaty will be ratified by Your Majesty through the formalities of Chile and the Netherlands, and will come into effect when the two countries exchange instruments of ratification in Santiago. Reporter Owen. What is Article 9? William IV, Article 9 is the end of the treaty. This treaty is to maintain the international peace in Chile and has the full provisions of the measures of the International Court of Justice in The Hague. It is valid until the period recognized by Chile and the Netherlands. In addition, the treaty is managed and handed over by Chilean Foreign Minister Antonia and Dutch Foreign Minister Joseph Beit. According to the management, after the approval of the two countries' parliaments, the text will be read in their respective countries and officially take effect. Reporter Owen. In this way, Chile has really become the most important ally of the Netherlands this time. Chapter 744, Sovereignty of Tierra del Fuego. With the signing of the Chile-Netherlands Security Treaty between the Netherlands and Chile, all countries were discussing the matter, and the situation became more and more intense. At the same time, the headquarters of the Six-Power Allied Forces led by Castillo officially announced that a military port second only to Guayaquil, Ecuador, the headquarters of the Allied forces, would be established in Puerto Montt, Chile, with the North and South responding to each other, and the number of conservatively stationed warships would not be less than 10. At the same time, Puerto Montt will have a permanent army of 40,000, and the remaining 20,000 will be stationed in the northernmost port of Acari, Chile, where a medium-sized military port will be built to serve as a transit station for the two major military ports. At the same time, the Six-Power Allied forces even fought the war to Tierra del Fuego, the southernmost island in South America. The government soldiers of South Chile fled to the part under the jurisdiction of Argentina, so the coalition used this as an excuse to send 3,000 troops and captured 500 Argentine soldiers stationed there and the South Chilean soldiers who fled there. The control of Tierra del Fuego also fell into the hands of the coalition. On April 25, 1879, when everyone was surprised that the alliance between Chile and the Netherlands was implemented quickly after it was signed, Argentina finally stood up. The security treaty between the Netherlands and Chile should not harm Argentina's interests. Tierra del Fuego is shared by Argentina and Chile. Although Chile patrols the Strait of Magellan with the support of the United Kingdom, Argentina has never considered the Strait of Magellan to be Chile's inland sea. We demand that the Six-Power Allied forces withdraw from the Tierra del Fuego territory ruled by Argentina in the east. Argentina used this to refute the Chile-Netherlands Security Treaty. However, the Six-Power Allied forces claimed that this was at the request of Chilean President Arturo Lozán. If Argentina had any objections, it could negotiate with the Chilean government. On April 27, 1879, Chilean President Lozán chose to refute it directly in Santiago. Tierra del Fuego has always been Chile's territory. Argentina and Chile used to be friendly, so Chile was willing to share the convenience of the sea transit station there with Argentina. However, the previous government was indifferent to Argentina's aggressive occupation of the eastern part of the island. Now it has borne bitter fruit, and Argentina has turned borrowing into occupation. In this regard, my cabinet government is absolutely opposed and resists this loss of territory, so I call on President Mitre of Argentina. It is time for Argentina to put away its ambitions. Chile is not Uruguay, you can divide it up as you like. Arturo Lozán's words immediately refreshed the world and caused great excitement among Chileans. Originally, many people in Chile were dissatisfied with the government for signing such a treaty with the Netherlands that reduced its own power, but with the promotion of the Chilean government and the Netherlands, all targets turned to Argentina. With the promotion, demonstrations against Argentina appeared in various parts of Chile. With the guidance of private newspapers controlled by the government and Dutch capital, the wind direction changed, and Argentina became the outlet for venting. On April 36, 1879, Dutch Prime Minister Linden was invited to give a speech in the Chilean Congress with Chilean President Arturo Lozán. This attracted attention at home and abroad. When Linden was asked by Chilean members of Congress about his views on the sovereignty of Tierra del Fuego and the Strait of Magellan raised by Argentina, He made a statement that was firmly against Argentina's defense of Chile's sovereignty and interests. Linden solemnly said to all the Chilean cabinet members and congressmen in the Congress Hall in Santiago, "Today I am here to announce the position of the Netherlands. First, Tierra del Fuego is under the jurisdiction of the Chilean government. Second, the Chile-Netherlands Security Guarantee Agreement applies to areas under the jurisdiction of Chile." Linden looked at the excited smiles of the Chilean cabinet officials and congressmen in the entire venue, and then dropped the next bomb. Third, therefore, the Chile-Netherlands Security Guarantee Treaty applies to Tierra del Fuego, and in this way, it is clearly stated that the Diaoyu Islands are the subject of the Chile-Netherlands Security Guarantee Treaty that stipulates our Netherlands' defense obligations to Chile. As his words fell, the entire venue cheered. The original sovereignty agreement and security agreement that the Netherlands took away Chile's military sovereignty should have had a negative effect on Chile, but with the dispute between Chile and Argentina in the Strait of Magellan and Tierra del Fuego, the Netherlands' clear support for Chile's sovereignty at this time turned the Netherlands from a thief to the most determined ally supporting Chile. Many Chileans who were originally anti-Dutch had to put away their opposition. They understood that with the recognition of this treaty, Chile would really rely entirely on the Netherlands in the future. As vested interests, if they don't know how to stand up and be the first to speak out, then he and his family will disappear forever. Chilean Presidential Palace. With the support of Dutch Prime Minister Linden in Congress for Chile, he immediately gained the support of people from all walks of life in Chile. This also made the Chilean president seem to have gone from being a humiliator to the biggest supporter of maintaining Chile's sovereignty. He was immediately supported by the Chileans, which he never expected. Therefore, he showed a sincere smile to Linden in front of him. Seeing this, Linden said, "Your Excellency the President has now officially established power in Chile. Coupled with the achievement of defeating southern Chile, the greatest president of Chile in the future may be the president." Luzon was naturally excited when he heard this, but he was humble. "Linden, Chile will be the most important ally of the Netherlands in the future. We in the Netherlands treat every one of our allies sincerely. I know that there must be a thorn in the heart of the president." Seeing that Luzon was about to say something, Linden continued, "The Netherlands will never let its allies suffer." Luzon didn't understand at this time that the Dutch president of the Christian Party was ready to promise benefits. "Linden, the Netherlands will invest a huge amount of money to help build Chile's civilian port terminal. At the same time, the economic communication between the Netherlands and South America will be based on the transit port of Chile's terminal. At the same time, we will build a large number of factories in Chile to help Chileans find jobs and improve Chile's economic status." As Linden mentioned many benefits, Luzon's heart was no longer calm. Seeing this, Linden threw a bone to lure the other party and said, "Why did Argentina develop into one of the world's 10 largest economies? In addition to its own agricultural economy, it is because of the capital investment from the Netherlands that Argentina's industry has developed on a large scale. As the relationship between the Netherlands and Argentina deteriorates, our Dutch capital will naturally gradually withdraw from Argentina." Linden said to the eager and excited President Luzon, "If President Luzon does not object to these withdrawn capital and factories and introduces support policies to support them, I think Chile will try Argentina next." Luzon, "Really?" Linden said affirmatively, "Of course, at that time, the Netherlands will guarantee that the president's family will be an ally of the Kingdom of the Netherlands in the future." Luzon immediately knew that he was convinced. Chapter 745 Germany's New South American Strategy. As the game of Britain intensified, German Chancellor Bismarck called on Britain and the Netherlands to end the confrontation and expressed the German Empire's willingness to play a stabilizing role in South America. At a dinner on April 30th to receive Brazilian Prime Minister Fonseca, Bismarck expressed his views to the media at various countries outside the venue, saying that the world should not stand idly by and watch Britain and the Netherlands continue to destroy the stable situation in South America. The two countries acted on the basis of the International Court of Justice in The Hague, and told these domestic and foreign media that he had urged leaders of various countries to avoid choosing sides between Britain and the Netherlands on the South American issue, thereby dividing the world. The German Chancellor, who was known for his iron-bloodedness, said that more and more countries were forced to choose sides between Britain and the Netherlands, and pointed out that this was a huge mistake. He believed that countries should compete, but they should also respect sovereignty. Bismarck hoped to relaunch the German Empire's South American strategy to play a stabilizing role in the Americas to avoid confrontation. "We don't believe in hegemony, we don't believe in confrontation," We believe in stability. He pointed out the game relationship between Britain and the Netherlands in South America through metaphors. We are in the jungle, and besides the native jaguars, tigers, Brazil and Argentina, and some smaller animals, there are two elephants, which are introduced as alien species. Their relationship is becoming increasingly tense. If their relationship becomes tense and leads to war over the grazing, it will become a big problem for the whole jungle. For this reason, the many tigers, jaguars and monkeys and other animals in the jungle must cooperate, or of course, new species must be introduced to balance the two elephants. Bismarck's speech also mentioned other issues, from the economic development of Europe to the regional unrest caused by the British and French confrontation with the Netherlands and the Kingdom of Siam in Southeast Asia. He said that the international community was facing multiple crises and therefore needed a coordinated response. The South American strategy that our German Empire wants to establish is how to provide a dynamic balance in this environment. That is, how to accurately maintain a stability and balance without allowing one of Britain and the Netherlands to become the hegemon in South America, or a confrontation between the two major powers. In response to the British and French invasion of the Kingdom of Siam in Southeast Asia, Bismarck pointed out that this war, which has not ended for more than a decade, is just on pause, which has always caused a lot of instability in the area. He emphasized that this is a problem that the Kingdom of Siam, the Netherlands, Britain and France need to face together. I think Spain and other stakeholders will also be very concerned about this. After all, the Russian Empire now owns the East Mandan region, and the Spanish colony is the Philippines. For countries such as the German Empire that have no territory there, economic waterways are also a kind of interest. Therefore, countries need to be aware of their responsibilities and take responsible actions. He said directly at a joint press conference with Brazilian Prime Minister Fonseca that he would seek consensus among all countries and ask Britain, France, the Netherlands and the Kingdom of Siam to ease relations. At the same time, he would also ask Britain and the Netherlands to negotiate in South America, and ask Argentina and Chile to stop increasing troops on the border and restore a peaceful atmosphere in South America, just like Fonseca. As Bismarck met with Fonseca in Berlin, his statement was immediately spread around the world, and everyone began to pay attention to what Bismarck's statement at this time represented. Since defeating the First French Empire, led by Napoleon I in 1815 and establishing the status of the Holy Four, Prussia has become one of the most powerful top countries in Europe. Its status is second only to Britain, Austria, and Russia, on par with France, and before the Ottoman Empire. However, in 1863, Prussia led many countries of the German Confederation to invade Denmark. Then in 1866, it defeated the Austrian Empire and finally took over all the member states of the German Confederation, except Austria, except the Duchy of Luxembourg and Nassau of the Netherlands, making Prussia unprecedentedly powerful after 1866. After successfully integrating various places in 1869, 2 years later, it launched a war against France, a powerful country in Central and Western Europe, and finally forced Napoleon II to be captured, signed a territorial compensation, and recognized the status of the Kingdom of Prussia as the German Empire. At this time, everyone knew that this was a symbol of Germany replacing the French Empire as the hegemony of Central and Western Europe. Another symbol was that the French Empire was actually divided into two by the Third Republic of France in the south, supported by the German Empire, which established that France had no strength to challenge the German Empire. The establishment of two Frances reduced them from a hegemonic country to a first-class country. So far, European countries are divided into 4 levels. The first level is the hegemonic country, Britain, Germany, Russia, and Austria. Second tier, Second French Empire, Kingdom of Spain, Third French Republic, Kingdom of Italy. Third tier, Netherlands, European part, Kingdom of Sweden, Kingdom of Portugal, Kingdom of Denmark, Kingdom of Greece, Netherlands. Fourth tier, Belgium, no coast, Switzerland, Bulgaria, Romania, Serbia, Montenegro. As for the Netherlands, many people have not counted the Netherlands in Europe, so if they count, they only count the European territory. However, just Europe, even at the top of the 3 tiers in Europe, can show how strong it is. After all, with the immigration of the Netherlands to the Australian continent, the European part of the Netherlands currently has only more than 2 million people, but it is ranked ahead of countries with more than 5 million people. There is no need to say more about the others. Back to the point, The words of the German Empire behind Bismarck were obviously announcing that the German Empire was going to clearly convey its preparation to march into South America. The United Kingdom and the Netherlands were mentioned many times. Ordinary people might be moved by his compassionate words and thought that he was really trying to balance Britain and the Netherlands and reduce the chance of war. However, those who saw it clearly knew that this was just the German Empire wanting to use Britain and the Netherlands as an excuse to intervene in South American affairs. And this excuse is very far-fetched, but it is enough. On May 1, 1879, Bismarck and Fonseca announced in Berlin that they had completed strategic negotiations between the two countries. The two announced that they would support each other in commercial escort in the Atlantic. At the same time, Brazilian Prime Minister Fonseca announced that Brazil supported the interests of the German Empire in Uruguay and clearly supported the government of Francisco Antonio Vidal, the current president of Uruguay, which was supported by Germany, and recognized all the agreements signed between Germany and Uruguay, including the treaty that Uruguay transferred 50 square kilometers of area around the eastern port of Rocha to the German Empire as a naval base. In return, Bismarck, reborn de Fonseca, also recognized the status of the Brazilian Empire in South America, and supported German capital to increase its investment in Brazil by more than 15 million marks, or £5 million, in the next 10 years. Invest more than £50 a year. Everyone understands that the two countries seem to be coming together. At this time, everyone understood what Bismarck had said before about the balance. It turned out that the German Empire had really entered the game, regardless of the entry point, but with the help of the local snake Brazilian Empire. Everyone thought, now, South America is even more chaotic. Chapter 746, South American Military Alliance. 1879, after a meeting in Honolulu, Hawaii, Netherlands, Jules Darnetang, the Deputy Prime Minister of the Netherlands, and Grover Cleveland, the Vice President of the Commonwealth of the United States, told reporters that Tierra del Fuego fell within the scope of application of Article 5 of the Chile-Netherlands Security Treaty. This was the first time that the Stephen Douglas Cabinet of the Commonwealth of the United States of America publicly expressed its support for the treaty between the Netherlands and Chile. Obviously, the Commonwealth of the United States of America still stood on the side of its ally the Netherlands, changing its previous position of opposing European countries' intervention in the political structure of South America. In addition, at the Six Nations plus Chile expansion meeting hosted by Guayaquil, Ecuador, the headquarters of the South American Military Alliance Organization, Six Nations Coalition, the defense ministers of all countries supported Chile as the seventh member of the South American Military Alliance. At the same time, the defense ministers of various countries also supported the position of Tierra del Fuego belonging to Chile, which became clearer. At the press conference, all countries clearly stated that the defense ministers of the last 7 countries of Tierra del Fuego all expressed that they could not tolerate the power of Tierra del Fuego under Chile's jurisdiction being undermined by other countries. Then the 7 defense ministers unanimously agreed in Guayaquil that the South American Military Alliance would send a 2,000-man army to be deployed in Ushuaia, and a small fleet to be stationed in Rio Grande Harbor for defense work, and cooperate with Chile's rule over Tierra del Fuego. The 7 countries unanimously agreed and signed the Treaty of Security of Tierra del Fuego and the Strait of Magellan. With a series of actions, the Argentine people were very excited, but facing pressure from the western and northern countries, coupled with a long-standing disagreement with Brazil, Argentina began to feel insecure, and it seemed that the sky was covered with dark clouds. Who can the Mitre government rely on at this time? Naturally, it is Britain. And Britain did sincerely support Argentina at this time. On May 4, 1879, when the Netherlands was making alliances and advancing step by step in South America to squeeze Argentina, Britain first put forward the statement of supporting Argentina's power in eastern Tierra del Fuego, and then condemned the South American military alliance formed by the Netherlands for destroying the regional balance. We don't think that the Netherlands' approach is the biggest help to South America, because as far as I know, the people there are most disgusted with Europe's rule there, so Britain has never directly implemented a policy of occupation. We also implemented the approach of an ally in Chile back then. But now the Netherlands has built 3 major military bases in the pellet mill, and it is still under the condition of hurting Argentina's power. This has violated the United States' long-standing opposition to European powers, developing South American forces, and intervening in South American affairs. What makes me curious is that the current cabinet government of the United States has not been born against it, but instead has shown affection with the Netherlands and the Hawaiian Islands. This is really a different treatment. British Prime Minister Clayton directly named the Netherlands and the American government at a press conference at 10 Downing Street and condemned. Britain calls on the Netherlands not to follow the path of Spain and South America in the past, because that will prevent South Americans from being disgusted. Finally, he directly shouted in London, "I call on Chile to calm the emotions of the Chileans in South America, and call on Chile and the Netherlands to return Argentina's rule over East Tierra del Fuego. Also, I hope that the South American military alliance is a peaceful organization, not a targeted military provocateur. Britain will strike at any time to undermine British national interests, because we have the ability and obligation to do so." Britain's position was immediately supported by Argentina, the Brazilian Empire, the Confederate States of America and the Kingdom of Portugal. These countries are very sensitive to the increasing influence of the Netherlands in South America, especially Brazil and Argentina. As the Dutch military alliance gradually became more and more cohesive, the two great powers of Brazil and Argentina, which used to be self-righteous, felt pressure. Because the forces formed by these other small and medium-sized countries under the Netherlands' enticement, whether in terms of area, population, or military strength, are enough to compete with Brazil, and even surpass it, and are much stronger than Argentina. So, they are worried. On May 5, 1879, seemingly affected by the pressure of the South American military alliance led by the Netherlands, Argentina and Brazil formed the South American Peace Alliance. The participating countries were Brazil and Argentina, and Uruguay, Britain, France, and Portugal were observer countries. On May 10, 1879, Paraguay declared neutrality and announced that it would sign friendly relations with the German Empire and the United States of America. President Pelé said that Paraguay did not support the South American Military Alliance or the South American Peace Alliance, and that Paraguay was only loyal to its own interests. As these countries expressed their positions, South America suddenly divided into several major forces with clear positions. On May 16, 1879, the Kingdom of Siam and Greece took the lead in announcing their joining the South American Military Alliance as partner countries. On May 18, 1879, Denmark, Sweden, and Spain also announced that they would become partner countries of the South American Military Alliance. On May 21, 1879, Belgium, Italy, and the Ottoman Empire declared a neutral position and did not favor any party. On May 27, 1879, Dutch Foreign Minister Joseph Beit visited St. Petersburg, during which he delivered a letter to Alexander II on behalf of William IV of the Netherlands. After that, Alexander II announced that the Russian Empire supported the position of the Netherlands and also became a partner country. The Russian Empire has always been an ally of the Netherlands, so we naturally support the Netherlands. As for Britain, everyone in the world knows that Britain is not trustworthy and cannot be trusted. Our Russian Empire has been fighting with Britain for hundreds of years, and we are still old rivals until now. So, since we are on that side, then naturally we need to support the Netherlands even more. The Russian Empire stood up and directly and clearly supported the Netherlands, which reduced the favorability of the Russian Empire to the lowest level in Britain. Prince Alfred of the British royal family was even more dissatisfied with the British because his princess was the only daughter of Alexander II. On June 1, 1879, Dutch Prime Minister Linden said at the Dutch Senate Budget Committee that morning that he supported Chile's request to include the Strait of Magellan in the Chile-Netherlands Security Treaty, and said that this was a decision made by him and Arthur Lawson, and was signed and implemented by His Majesty William IV. In this way, if anything happens in the Strait of Magellan and Tierra del Fuego, the Netherlands and Chile will jointly respond. On June 5, 1879, the 7 major member states of the Netherlands, Colombia, Venezuela, Ecuador, Peru, Bolivia, and Chile, plus 5 partner countries including the Kingdom of Siam, Denmark, Sweden, Greece, and the Russian Empire, conducted a naval and land army exercise in Puerto Montt. As the exercise unfolded, South America seemed to be filled with a sense of oppression. Chapter 747 4 Major Camps. Along with the 7 major member states of the Netherlands, Colombia, Venezuela, Ecuador, Peru, Bolivia, and Chile, plus 5 partner countries including the Kingdom of Siam, Denmark, Sweden, Greece, and the Russian Empire, they conducted exercises in Puerto Montt on June 5, 1879. On June 8, 1879, Argentina also conducted naval exercises with Britain in the Malvinas Islands, known as the Falkland Islands in Britain. Britain dispatched a total of 5 warships, including the Royal Oak ironclad with side turrets, the Defense ironclad, the Sovereign sailing battleship with a cylindrical turret, and the Warrior ironclad. It can be said that the scale is not small. Argentina dispatched all 4 ironclad ships to participate, including the San Martin, Argentina, Buenos Aires, and Mitre. With the start of the exercise, under the report of British newspapers, it is said that in order to help Argentina deal with the Netherlands, the British government has applied to Argentina to lease the Malvinas Islands, and President Mitre is currently hesitating. However, the UK has won over many Argentine parliamentarians and seems to be planning to hold a vote in Congress. Many British politicians have clearly predicted that the UK's application will be approved. As this news broke, it immediately caused an uproar in South America. On June 13, 1879, Chilean President Arturo Lozán said in a mocking tone in Santiago, the capital of Chile, as a big country in South America, if Argentina leases the Malvinas Islands to Britain, then Argentina's international status will be reduced. Argentina drove away Spain, resisted Britain's invasion, and even resisted the interference of the United States. Now Argentina is again helping Britain to colonize South America in the form of leasing. Recently, I have read many Argentine newspapers talking about how Chile has become a colony of the Netherlands, but we did not lease any territory to the Netherlands. We only gave the right to use it to the Netherlands, and the civil use right of Puerto Montt is still in the hands of Chile. However, Argentina, which has been criticizing Chile, is now reported to lease its only large archipelago, the Malvinas Islands, to Britain. What I want to say here is that in history, Britain has always leased but not returned. I wonder if Britain will break the history of not returning the Malvinas Islands after Argentina lends them to Britain this time? I expect Britain to really break this tradition, but it seems uncertain. As Arturo Lozán's words were reported in South America and the world, countries looked at Argentina and Britain with sarcasm. As the lessor, many people in Argentina expressed their opinions and opposed it. Obviously, Arturo Lozán's words of borrowing but not returning really hit the hearts of all those who knew British history. As Argentina opposed the Lend-Lease Act everywhere, the British government directly reversed and no longer leased the entire island to the Argentine government. Instead, it took a more tactful approach and only leased the 2 major ports of the Malvinas Islands, Port Chartres and Port Argentina, Port Stanley, in the middle and eastern part of the Argentine government. Moreover, the UK also wrote it into the lease agreement in the form of an annual rent of £1,000. Now, many people in Argentina were relieved. There was no way. The Western Chile was getting more and more noisy, and it was getting more and more presumptuous towards the original Big Brother Argentina. This hit the self-esteem of the Argentines, but as Argentina and the Netherlands fell out, the Netherlands turned to support Chile, which made the Argentines, who knew how powerful the Netherlands was, very wary. Now the Netherlands has even sent troops to Puerto Montt in the south, and the port of Arica on the border of Chile, Bolivia and Peru in the north, which has caused great strategic pressure on Argentina. Argentina is currently at odds with Chile and the Netherlands, and is fighting with Brazil. Many people in Argentina naturally know this, and their hidden worries are overflowing on the surface. Therefore, with the retreat of the British lease form, the Argentines have made psychological concessions in the direction of compromise. Of course, the British know that Argentina needs more face. On June 17, 1879, the British Foreign Office proposed that the Prime Minister's office at 10 Downing Street make the final decision. The Parliament passed it, and Buckingham Palace agreed. Britain finally doubled the rent to Argentina, leasing the East Malvinas Islands for £2,000 per year, with an indefinite lease term and termination by mutual consent. Argentina was naturally delighted to see that Britain gave so much face, and naturally no longer strongly opposed it. So on June 30, 1879, in Buenos Aires, Argentine President Mitre and the British ambassador to Argentina signed a successful contract. With the successful signing of the contract, Britain obtained the second warship berthing place in South America after British Guinea, and with the arrival of Britain, Argentina also had greater courage to face the threat of the South American military alliance composed of 7 countries, including the Netherlands and Chile. However, it did not hurt people's intentions, but it was necessary to guard against people's hearts. The South American military alliance composed of the 7-nation coalition led by the Netherlands shocked the entire Americas and even attracted great attention in Europe. The United States, which has always been known for its Monroe Doctrine, did not say a word, even the partner country of the South American Military Alliance, which made people see an opportunity. The alliance between Britain and Argentina made people realize that the South American camp began to be separated. Where there are people, there are rivers and lakes. Paraguay is in the heart of South America, and Uruguay is under great pressure between Argentina and Brazil. The same is true for the Brazilian Empire. It just so happened that the German Empire came directly to the door at this time. The German Empire announced that it would send training officers to help Paraguay and Uruguay train troops. At the same time, Germany and the two countries would carry out a series of measures to protect the interests of the Atlantic and South America, and would not allow other countries to undermine their interests. Also, the third camp appeared. Brazil was naturally unwilling to become the fourth tier, so under the matchmaking of Pedro II, the Brazilian Empire and the Kingdom of Portugal continued their relationship, and the alliance between the two countries was successfully formed again. So far, the fourth camp in South America was established. Even because of the strength of the Brazilian Empire and the Portuguese Navy, which was not inferior to the German Empire Navy, and Portugal was closest to South America and Europe, the combination of Brazil and Portugal even surpassed the German, Paraguayan, and Uruguayan camps at once, becoming the third camp after the South American military alliance led by the Netherlands and the British and Argentine camps. The German Empire also truly joined the struggle in South America for the first time, but its strength was relatively weak. The old partners of Brazil and Portugal are not to be underestimated. The British and Argentine combination relies on the British Navy that dominates the world and Argentina's military strength that is almost in the top 10 in the world. No one will feel relaxed about this combination. The military alliance of the Netherlands, Colombia, Venezuela, Ecuador, Peru, Bolivia and Chile is the most stressful. In the past decade, the Netherlands has been developing the armies of these countries, so the strength of each of these countries is not strong, but the combination of two countries is a headache for the Brazilian Empire, not to mention the alliance of 6 countries. The world-class power of the Netherlands is still behind the scenes, but didn't you see that Britain was defeated in Chile? Well, can the other 3 camps not be worried? Chapter 748, The ball is in Mexico's court. 1879, Mexican President Porfirio Diaz visited Melbourne, Australia. It was the first meeting between King William IV of the Netherlands and Mexican President Porfirio Diaz in 9 years. The last meeting was in Amsterdam before the Netherlands moved its capital. At that time, the other party was the leader of the opposition party during the presidency of former President Benito Juarez. He followed Bertoni to attend the Prime Minister-President level meeting organized by the International Court of Justice in The Hague. The meeting between the two was arranged in an extremely tight room. Your Majesty, the environment here is much better than Amsterdam. No one knew that Porfirio Diaz could speak Dutch, and he spoke it very standardly. No one knew that as the President of Mexico, he chose to lower his head slightly when facing William IV. This action would only be made when facing people who are more noble than himself. Porfirio, it's fine if you just said this to me. If it gets to the Netherlands and Europe, be careful that more than 2 million people in the South will hate you. William IV teased, although, I also want to say this, haha. Porfirio smiled bitterly and began to change the subject. Your Majesty has made too big a move in South America this time, and it has now affected the Gulf of Mexico. William IV pretended to be ignorant and asked curiously, oh? Are you Mexicans also worried about us in the Netherlands? Porfirio Diaz shook his head. On the contrary, we are just worried that the Netherlands has too little capital investment. Why? William IV asked again. Porfirio Diaz, Britain supported the southern United States and the Civil War broke out. The war lasted from the Lincoln era in 1861 to the Andrew Johnson era, a full 7 or 8 years, and in the end, the 13 southern states became independent. Of the 48 states in the United States, Hawaii and Alaska were in the hands of the Netherlands. Only 35 states remained after the 13 southern states became independent. William IV, so what? Porfirio Diaz said dissatisfiedly, originally, the United States was a complete country. In order to jointly deal with Britain's influence in Canada, the U.S. government had a very good relationship with Mexico. However, with the independence of the 13 southern states as the Confederate States of America, Britain was afraid that Mexico and the 35 northern states of the United States would form the Confederate States of America to deal with the 13 southern states in the middle. They deployed nearly 50,000 troops on the border between Mexico and the 13 southern states, forcing us to deploy 50,000 to 60,000 people there. Your Majesty should know that Maximilian I, the brother of Joseph I of Austria-Hungary, was executed by President Bertoni Juarez, which eventually triggered the revenge of Austria-Hungary. At present, they occupy part of the territory east of Lake Termacino in southern Mexico. Therefore, we have to send more than 30,000 troops there to defend the 10,000 troops deployed by Austria-Hungary there. Porfirio Diaz worriedly, faced with these two powers, we naturally hope to introduce a balancing force. William IV asked, isn't the United States of America possible? You know, Stephen Douglas is very ambitious. Porfirio Diaz, but he himself is too far away, Your Majesty should know. There are many British supporters in the Democratic Party. Moreover, the Democratic Party's opponent, the Republican Party, is even more capital-oriented and has close relations with the German Empire. It was not so bad in the past, when the relationship between Prussia and Austria was the most strained. But now the Bismarck government is developing a new relationship with the Austro-Hungarian Empire. Currently, Austria-Hungary uses the Germans to hinder the influence of Mexico in the United States, which is hindering our approach. Therefore, the Republican Party even promoted a motion to slow down the development of closer economic relations with us, but it was stopped by Stephen Douglas. Porfirio Diaz said, Southern America has made the British in the United States oppose us, and the Austro-Hungarian Empire took advantage of the opportunity of the Bismarck government of the German Empire to win them over and propose that the German-Americans suppress us. Therefore, it seems that the only people who can stand with Mexico at present are the Dutch. William IV stared at him with shining eyes and smiled, you have a good idea. But you also know that we are currently fighting to the death with Britain and Argentina in South America, and our energy is limited. Porfirio Diaz, but I see that you seem to be able to handle it with ease. Your Majesty has been a wise man in my mind for many years. You always have a backup plan for everything and you have almost no omissions. I don't believe that Your Majesty will let the situation develop in a direction that is not beneficial to the Netherlands. William IV, so you are optimistic about the Netherlands and are ready to really bet on the Netherlands. Porfirio Diaz shook his head. With a grateful look in his eyes, he said to William IV, in 1861, during the war in Mexico against the invasion of Napoleon I joined the government army of Bertoni Juarez and became a general. In February 1864, I was defeated in Oaxaca City and surrendered with my army. Later, I managed to escape. However, after losing 750 of the 8,000 troops, I fled back to Mexico City with only more than 500 people. In order to quell domestic anger, President Bertoni Juarez almost executed me. In the end, it was the Dutch ambassador to Mexico who saved me. Then I went to Amsterdam for 3 years and learned the tactics of the Dutch army. Finally, I returned to Mexico in 1868 and joined the local guerrillas to form my own team. Later, with the support of the Netherlands, we occupied part of northwestern Mexico, and finally the entire west of the Sierra Madre Occidental fell into our hands. For the integrity of Mexico, Bertoni Juarez finally surrendered to us. Finally we formed our own political party. After 1867, I ran for president with Juarez, but failed in the end. In 1871, I failed again in the second election. At this point, Porfirio Diaz shot a strong look and said, but God is fair. In 1872, Juarez had a sudden heart attack and died. I laid a solid foundation and finally launched the revolution, but unfortunately failed. I was defeated by Juarez's successor Tejeda. I almost went to jail, but the Netherlands is worthy of our backing, and I got out again. In 1876, I won the election. God paid off, and I was successful. William IV nodded and said, yes, you succeeded, and you succeeded so thoroughly. All the cronies of Bertoni Juarez and his successor Tejeda were killed by you, and now you are the one who calls the shots in the whole of Mexico. Speak, Mr. President of Mexico, the most powerful since Mexico's independence, be frank and tell us what you think. More than a decade ago, no one would have thought that this guy would be more powerful than Bertoni Juarez. When the Netherlands invested in the latter, it was mainly to win him over. After all, the other party was too stubborn and Europe had been offended by him, so William IV was unwilling to put his hopes on him. Therefore, in the end, he set his sights on Porfirio Diaz in front of him. Similarly, except for him, No one knew that this guy in front of him would be a dictator in Mexico for 35 years after the successful coup in 1876. He was forced to step down in 1911 and died in Paris in 1915. William IV would naturally not be kind enough to provide Mexico with the best democracy or economic life. On the contrary, what he hoped to get from Mexico was the most important thing. Is there any ally that is more suitable and cost-effective than Porfirio Diaz in front of him to be a stable ally of the Netherlands for the next 30 years? There shouldn't be any, right? Therefore, William IV's multiple investments in him were definitely a sure win. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelis. There you'll find the original version of this story, and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 749, Spreading to Central America. Mexican President Porfirio Diaz chose to visit Melbourne, the new capital of the Netherlands, on the Australian continent, when the situation in South America was complicated and divided into 4 major camps, which surprised everyone. Everyone couldn't help but raise a question in their minds: what is Mexico going to do? Since Diaz defeated former President Lerdo, who was seeking re-election in May 1877, he has attracted much attention. However, since he acted cautiously as soon as he came to power, it was reassuring. Since Mexico became independent from Spain in 1821, it has experienced 2 foreign invasions by the United States and France, and half a century of civil war and chaos. Mexicans have always been very sensitive to external intervention, so Mexicans chose Diaz to launch slogans to help people urgently need peace and stability. In response to this sentiment, Diaz adopted some easing policies. He was not in a hurry to change some of the practices of his 2 predecessors, whether it was Juarez or Lerdo, or even the church decrees issued by President Farias before, as long as the written laws and customary laws that still played a role in daily life were maintained for the time being. However, in view of the lessons of the military intervention and politics, Diaz cut the military power of the generals, gave them a salary, and then sent them to the local areas. He used the contradictions between the local governors and the military chiefs to offset each other. In politics, Diaz is more nationalistic. Newspapers can express opinions freely, and the judiciary maintains autonomy. The country is much more stable than before, people's lives are relatively stable, and most people are gradually developing a good impression of Diaz. In view of the lessons of the military intervention and politics in the past, Diaz cut the military power of the generals, gave them generous salaries, and then sent them to the local areas. He used the contradictions between the local governors and the military chiefs to offset each other's power. In politics, Diaz practiced a little democracy. Newspapers can freely express opinions, and the judiciary maintains autonomy. The country is much more stable than before, people's lives are relatively stable, and most people are gradually developing a good impression of Diaz. Diaz has even become one of the most popular presidents in Mexico. As a result, all countries gradually felt relieved about the Mexican president who had been focusing on developing Mexico's internal affairs for 2 years, and even countries including Britain, France and Germany began to show goodwill to him. But under such circumstances, Diaz chose to visit the Netherlands during this sensitive period and was met by William IV. It is said that he was also given a grand reception. There was no major transaction here, who would believe it? Therefore, all countries kept a close eye on his itinerary. On June 17, 1879, he landed in Sydney and met with several people from the delegation of 100,000 Mexican immigrants in Sydney, Australia on the same day, and urged them to continue to play the role of a link between Mexico and the Netherlands to ease relations. On June 18, 1879, he took a train from Sydney to Melbourne, and stopped in Canberra, the second largest city in New South Wales, and stayed overnight. On the same day, he met with the leader of the Christian Party and the Dutch Prime Minister Linden. After the meeting, the two agreed to have a more in-depth exchange on the Pacific issue, and the South American issue also entered the vision of both sides. After a friendly exchange on one side, Linden and Diaz held bilateral talks. Linden said that as the largest island country in the Pacific, the Netherlands will always seek peace and promote development and cooperation as the starting point of its Pacific Island policy. Diaz said that Mexico's starting point for singing to the great power of the Pacific, the Netherlands, is always to seek peace and promote bilateral development. At the same time, He also emphasized that Mexico said that the deepening exchanges between the two countries benefited from the joint formulation of rules in South America and the Pacific by the two countries, and was ready to withstand challenges and tests with the Netherlands. With such a statement, Britain and Argentina were the first to be dissatisfied. The two expressed dissatisfaction with the statement of Mexican President Bosch, but Mexico did not respond. So many people believe that this is part of the Netherlands' efforts to readjust its relations with the American powers after the Netherlands felt pressured by the reasonable accession of Britain, France and Germany. Mexico has always pursued an independent foreign policy and has been trying to find a balance between the United States and European powers. This is what the previous Mexican presidents are doing. And this is also the consistent position of Mexico that countries are familiar with. Precisely because of the familiarity, Bosch, the Mexican president who has been in power for 2 years and is extremely low-key, suddenly visited Australia like an airborne visit, and will visit the leaders of the three major Dutch parties and King William IV of the Netherlands respectively. And the Netherlands actually needs to arrange to do so. This is an unprecedented move by the Netherlands. Even the last time, the U.S. President Stephen Douglas did not receive such treatment. No one knows what kind of statement he will make after meeting with Jules Darnedang, the leader of the Liberal Party and the Deputy Prime Minister of the Netherlands, and Jan van Lopik, the leader of the Liberal Party and the former Minister of Finance, and no one knows how far the relationship between the two countries will be advanced after he meets with William IV. These are all questions that everyone has. But the mystery will soon be solved. On June 19, 1879, Diaz met with Jules Darnedang. Darnedang expressed support for Mexico's right to development. He said that he would push the Netherlands to speed up the establishment of military ties with Mexico, and promote new bills in the Dutch parliament to help 5 million Mexicans enter the fast lane of the South American economic development law and deepen the economic circle of the two countries' roots on the Pacific Ocean. Finally, Darnedang said that the Liberal Party will maintain friendly relations with the Mexican political party. On June 20, 1879, Jan van Lopik, leader of the Liberal Party, also supported the establishment of close relations between the Netherlands and Mexico, and he said that the Liberal Party has always been the most friendly to Mexico. The Liberal Party has promoted the economic development of the Netherlands and Mexico in the past 16 years. He also said that there are more than 1,000 Dutch companies developing the economy in Mexico City. Although the Liberal Party is an opposition party, it will also support the role of the parliament in further promoting friendly relations with Mexico. At the same time, he also said that he would promote the provinces and cities governed by the Liberal Party to deepen the development with the local provinces and cities in Mexico, establish sister city interactions, and establish a more friendly development route. He highly appreciated the support of the two leaders of the second and third parties in the Netherlands for the relationship between the Netherlands and Mexico. He even boasted that he was most excited to get the support of the whole of the Netherlands this time. The meeting with William IV on June 21, 1879 attracted attention. With the news on June 22, 1879 that Diaz and William IV had a meeting of up to 50 minutes, the results of the meeting between the two were also made public. Mexico has long had close relations with small and medium-sized countries in South America. It is the third largest country in Latin America after Brazil and Argentina, and was one of the main forces in the fight against Spain's continued colonization. However, more than a decade later, Mexico chose not to join Colombia, Venezuela and other Dutch-led South American alliances in criticizing Britain, and was accused of being too soft on Britain. However, after Britain joined forces with Argentina, Germany formed alliances with Paraguay and Uruguay, Portugal and Brazil. Mexico has become increasingly tough in its stance on the growing influence and military strength of non-regional countries such as Britain and Germany in Latin America. When Bosch asked about Britain's policy towards South America after meeting with William IV, peace is Mexico's most persistent pursuit. Mexico is a major country in Central America. Mexico does not think that the practices of Britain and other countries in South America are linked to peace. He further said, Britain, Germany and France both benefit from a stable and secure region, and the international law and norms of the International Court of Justice in The Hague also provide a good environment for the region, but at present, Britain and Argentina seem to be testing Chile and the Netherlands on Tierra del Fuego. Brown, chief researcher and director of the Amsterdam Peace Research Institute, pointed out in an interview with the Australian Times that the security agreement between Britain and Argentina is a security risk to Chile and Mexico, But Mexico does not seem to want to completely offend Britain and must remain friendly with Britain and maintain a balance in economy. But in terms of security, Mexico and the Netherlands will develop further relations in the future. Brown continued that the entire Latin America region faces the same problem, and Mexico is aware of the contradictions between Latin America and Chile and Argentina, and certainly does not want the same thing to happen in the Caribbean. As for how Mexico should balance its relationship with the United Kingdom and the South American Military Alliance countries, Boulang pointed out that all the South American Military Alliance countries have close economic and security exchanges with the Netherlands, but the United Kingdom also has trade exchanges with various countries, and they can actually understand the concerns of the United Kingdom. Moreover, Mexico, as a Central American country that calls itself a great power, will certainly not lean towards the Netherlands, so Brown called on the Dutch government to realize this, and then make the relationship with the Mexican government clearer to start diplomacy. However, Krim, director and chief researcher of the Australian Institute, expressed his opinion in the European Times that Mexico has always wanted to be seen as an independent country that does not favor both sides, and they have done so before. He said that the South American Military Alliance is an organization led by the Netherlands to share intelligence networks and form military alliances. As long as Mexico does not become a member of the organization, it will not truly become a member of the Netherlands Trust. Mexico itself has said that it is a great power, so it will not join this project led by the Netherlands, because that would conflict. However, he also said that the Netherlands might also share intelligence about Britain with Mexico without engaging in military cooperation. They can freely cooperate with the South American Military Alliance, led by the Netherlands, based on their national interests. He said that the meeting between His Majesty William IV and Diaz and their agreement to cooperate and exchange views on the development of the situation in the Pacific and South America was the beginning of Mexico's transformation, so it is too early to make any judgments. Chapter 750 Contradictory Spain. 1879, after Diaz left Australia and boarded a ship back to Mexico, William IV gave an interview to the Australian and expressed his views on the battlefield and the development of the situation. The struggle between the Netherlands and Britain in South America has lasted for many years. With the changing situation of the war in Chile, it seems to have ended, but everything is unknown. The conflict between the Anglo-Dutch may continue for several summers. He also said that although some form of ceasefire would be welcome, it was only a temporary and fortunate thing. He said, many people began to think that the war was over, and the Netherlands and Chile were winning, but the British began to leave southern Chile and plunged into Argentina, which welcomed them with open arms. Therefore, it has to be said that Britain's situation seems to be better. However, I am not saying that they have gained some kind of advantage, but this situation will continue for a long time. I expect next summer or even the next summer will be worse than this year. William IV. Many people think that the war is over and the Netherlands has won. However, when asked about the possibility that Britain might arm Argentina to counter the establishment of a Dutch military base in Chile, William IV said, Buenos Aires and Santiago are mobilizing all the resources they can mobilize, because why? Remember, there is no love in war. William IV also said, I would like to see Chile and Argentina stop the tension, Britain and the Netherlands ease relations, and the four parties find a solution to the war, but this does not depend on me and the Dutch government. I am neither Chilean nor Argentine, nor British. This is for them to solve. As the monarch of the Netherlands, I generally do not easily interfere in government affairs. The report of the interview with William IV also pointed out that Britain and France had always wanted to test Mexico City, Washington, and Sao Paulo, demanding that the foreign policies of Mexico, the United States, and Brazil be coordinated with those of London and Paris, and that sanctions be imposed on the Netherlands. However, it is obvious that Mexican President Diaz hurriedly visited Australia to meet with the leaders of the three major Dutch parties and William IV. This is a direct action to show that Mexico rejected the demands of Britain and France. Obviously, Mexico is unwilling to be coerced. Diaz stepped out of the Netherlands, although the other foot was still reserved to take the route of Chile and neutrality. On July 3, 1879, William IV met with the visiting Queen Isabella of Spain. The two held a 45-minute meeting. The Netherlands and Spain reached an agreement containing positive content such as strengthening high-level exchanges and enhancing political mutual trust. The two sides agreed that the importance of the Netherlands and Spain would not change. In terms of military, They agreed to establish a European maritime security mutual visit and stopover system. In the Far East, the two signed an agreement to establish a route stopover between the Philippines and the Dutch East Indies to strengthen exchanges between the defense and maritime departments. In addition, the two countries also need to require the maintenance of global and regional peace and prosperity. Spain and the Netherlands, as formal members of the Nordic Alliance, have established alliances with Denmark and Sweden. However, in the Far East, Spain has always been concerned about the huge influence of the Netherlands, so it is unwilling to sign a too strong agreement with the Netherlands. This time, Mexico took the initiative to approach the Netherlands, which touched the former sovereign of Spain very much, because the entire Latin America, except Brazil, was under the colonial rule of Spain almost 50 years ago. Now looking at the development of the situation there, everyone suddenly discovered that the most taken over by Spain in the past was not Britain, which has always suppressed Spain, nor America, which has always shouted that America belongs to Americans, and is on guard against Europe. It is not France, whose strength has been greatly reduced, but the Netherlands, which was split from Spain when it was the most powerful in Europe. The Netherlands currently has a dominant influence in the entire western and northern parts of South America, and now it seems that Mexico is also leaning towards standing with the Netherlands, which almost completely replicates the original territory of Spain. Although the Netherlands has no colonial rule and maintains its influence through the relationship of allies, this at least shows that the Netherlands has influence there, right? Precisely because of seeing through this, many conservatives in the opposition party in Spain oppose the Netherlands to develop a deeper relationship. On the contrary, it is in the interests of Spain to support Britain. However, these opposition parties have been driven out of power, so their words are not taken seriously. Isabella II will naturally not accept it. Don't forget that it was these people who almost forced her to abdicate and give the throne to her second uncle. It's so hateful. These people were finally found to have a close relationship with Napoleon III, so she was naturally very wary of France. It is precisely because of this that, in the case of poor relations with Britain, strengthening relations with the Netherlands is officially the best choice for Spain at present. At the meeting, the two teams formulated 5 agreements to promote the development of stable relations between the Netherlands and Spain, including the opening of a port intercommunication mechanism between the Far East Spanish and Dutch territories as soon as possible, and a political declaration of no threat to each other. Many Spanish newspapers believe that the direct talks between the two kings this time are a step further than just a prime ministerial meeting, which has brought the bad relations between the two countries back on track after Spain took away the Netherlands' leading position in the Nordic Alliance 9 years ago. However, on the other hand, Spain still maintains a certain public opinion that the Netherlands has ambitions for the Philippines, which casts a shadow on the lifting of mutual vigilance between Spain and the Netherlands. The Spanish Vanguard reported that the King's meeting did not issue a joint statement, but from the 5 agreements issued by the Netherlands, it can be learned that William IV is seeking to strengthen bilateral cooperation. The reason why the maritime contact mechanism will be established as soon as possible is also to respond to Spain's military concerns. The report said that the facial expression of William IV of the Netherlands when meeting Isabella II is an important indicator of the distance between the two countries. This Spanish newspaper professionally claimed that when meeting Isabella II in Athens in 1870, there were no flags of the two countries in the background, and the facial expressions were stiff. The reason at that time was that Spain was supported by Denmark and Sweden to join the Nordic Alliance, and the Netherlands took the initiative to give up the initiative. This time, in addition to the national flag, William IV also had a smile on his face, which showed that the Netherlands was willing to have a closer relationship with Spain this time. The newspaper believes that there is another reason why William IV has a good impression of Isabella II this time, that is, the atmosphere and ruling faction in Spain are relatively more pro-Dutch and more friendly. The Madrid Daily also believes that William IV smiled and shook hands with Isabella II, which was the Netherlands' intention to exude a friendly atmosphere with Spain and was willing to renew the alliance relationship with Spain. Of course, Isabella II also attaches importance to the important relationship between the Netherlands and the promotion of Spanish economic development. After all, the Netherlands is now Spain's largest trading partner. However, many opposition parties in Spain also published statements in the Spanish Vanguard, urging Isabella II to say no to the Netherlands on the issue of power in the Philippines and Spanish influence in South America. They also urged the Spanish government to introduce other trading partners as soon as possible to counter the Dutch monopoly in the automobile industry, especially to help Spain's own domestic bicycles. After all, the popular bicycles on the roads in Spain are all made by Dutch companies. Although William IV was in Melbourne, he quietly read the enlarged Spanish newspaper in his hand. No one expected that he could speak Spanish. End of this chapter. Thank you very much for reaching the end. Don't forget to like. Looking for more exclusive content and immediate access? Subscribe to our Patreon. Remember, every like, subscription, or donation encourages us to continue. Thanks to everyone. See you in the next video.